The news broke on a cold March morning, sending shockwaves through Hollywood and across the globe. Gene Hackman, one of the most revered and versatile actors in cinematic history, had passed away at the age of 94. It felt like a page of history had turned. The man who had brought unforgettable characters to life, from the determined detective in The French Connection to the morally complex outlaw in Unforgiven, was gone. His death was a loss not just for Hollywood, but for the countless fans who had grown up watching him on the big screen. For a moment, the world paused. The flood of tributes that poured in across social media and news outlets was overwhelming. Fellow actors, filmmakers, and fans alike mourned his passing. It seemed like everyone had a story to share, stories of the man who, despite his towering presence on screen, had remained down-to-earth, humble, and deeply private in his personal life. But what no one expected was the turn of events that followed. At the funeral service, which was attended by family, friends, and some of the biggest names in the industry, there was one unexpected guest, Elon Musk. The billionaire tech mogul, the face of Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink, stood out in the sea of mourners. Musk's appearance was both a shock and a curiosity. Why would a figure so deeply entrenched in the world of technology and space exploration be at the funeral of a retired actor known for his gritty roles in movies from a bygone era? Musk had never been known to show much interest in Hollywood or the entertainment industry. He had always been focused on advancing humanity's future through technological innovation. Yet here he was, standing among the mourners, a serious expression on his face as he quietly observed the proceedings. What was his connection to Hackman? What brought him here today, of all days? As the funeral ceremony came to a close, with mourners quietly dispersing, Musk remained, deep in conversation with some of Hackman's closest friends and family. The whispers began almost immediately. What was he talking about? What plans could he possibly have in mind? That's when the first clue emerged. In an interview with a journalist later that afternoon, Musk hinted at something bigger, a gesture that would honor Hackman's legacy in a way no one had anticipated. Gene Hackman was a visionary in his own right. He changed the way we think about storytelling in film, Musk said. And I believe there's a way for us to honor his legacy, in a way that reflects his impact on the world. The comment hung in the air, leaving more questions than answers. What was Musk talking about? And what kind of legacy could a tech mogul like him possibly help preserve for someone whose life was built on the magic of Hollywood? This was just the beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? As the world speculated about Musk's next move, it became clear that this story was about to take a turn no one saw coming. What started as the farewell to an iconic actor was quickly turning into something far more significant, blending the worlds of film, technology, and something more unexpected, hope. But where would this journey take us? And how would Musk, of all people, be the one to shape the legacy of Gene Hackman? These were the questions that would soon captivate the public's imagination. Gene Hackman's career had been marked by complexity and brilliance. His legendary performances weren't just about the roles he played, but how he played them. Whether portraying the determined, gritty detective Jimmy Popeye Doyle in The French Connection or the morally gray, deeply human outlaw Little Bill Daggett in Unforgiven, Hackman had the rare ability to make audiences question their perceptions of right and wrong. His characters often walked the fine line between hero and villain, reflecting the complexity of the human condition. But it wasn't just his roles that made him special. Hackman's life off-screen was just as fascinating. He had been a quiet, private man, stepping away from the public eye after his retirement in 2004. Unlike many of his peers, he didn't bask in the limelight of constant fame. Instead, he chose to live a life away from the cameras, focused on his family and passions outside the world of entertainment. Despite his reclusiveness, his impact on Hollywood and the world of film remained undeniable. As the media began to digest Hackman's passing, one question became increasingly central: how could his legacy be preserved? That's where Elon Musk came into play. Elon Musk, the mastermind behind SpaceX and Tesla, was not a stranger to ambitious projects. He was a man known for his boldness, always thinking outside the box and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Whether it was sending rockets into space or revolutionizing electric cars, Musk had made a name for himself by doing the impossible. But could he really be the one to preserve Hackman's legacy? No one had expected Musk's involvement. At first, it seemed like a strange connection, Hackman, the actor, and Musk, the tech mogul. But the more people thought about it, the more the idea began to make sense. Both men were visionaries in their respective fields. Hackman had revolutionized the world of acting with his gritty, transformative performances, while Musk had done the same in the world of technology. They were both risk-takers, unafraid to push boundaries and challenge conventional thinking. Musk's public comments only heightened the sense of intrigue. He spoke of Hackman's legacy as something more than just film. Hackman's approach to storytelling, Musk had said, was visionary. The depth he brought to his characters changed the way we think about human complexity. That kind of legacy shouldn't just be remembered, it should be built upon. And then, as if to solidify the promise, Musk made an unexpected announcement on Twitter just a week later: "I'm working on a project that will combine Gene Hackman's legacy with cutting-edge technology. Stay tuned." The announcement sent ripples through social media. What did Musk mean by this? What kind of project could possibly combine the worlds of film and technology in a meaningful way? The public was buzzing with excitement and speculation, with many wondering how a man like Musk, who had built his fortune on electric cars and space travel, could tie his vision to the world of Hollywood. But that was the beauty of it. Elon Musk, the man who had boldly launched rockets into space, was now preparing to honor Gene Hackman in a way no one could have predicted. And so, the story began, a story of unexpected connections, bold gestures, and a legacy that would transcend both time and industry. This was just the beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Gene Hackman's story began far from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Born on January 30, 1930, in San Bernardino, California, he grew up in a modest household that was as ordinary as any. His father, Eugene Sr., worked as a printer, while his mother, Anna, took up secretarial work. The Hackman family wasn't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but they had enough to get by. Still, life in the 1930s and 1940s was tough, especially during the Great Depression when money was scarce and opportunities were few. For young Gene, this meant learning the value of hard work, perseverance, and above all, resilience. From an early age, Hackman was an introspective child, often lost in thought and dreaming of a world far beyond the small Southern California town where he was raised. His passion for the arts started early, though it wasn't always obvious. While most kids would head to the playground or join local sports teams, Gene preferred to escape into books or watch movies. He was mesmerized by the larger-than-life characters that appeared on the screen, stories of adventure and heroism that captivated his imagination. But his path to acting wasn't a straight one. After graduating from high school, Hackman enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps during the Korean War, a decision that would shape his future in ways he could never have imagined. The military offered him a chance to see the world and exposed him to a different kind of discipline, one that would stay with him long after his service. Hackman's time in the Corps taught him a lot about human nature, about courage, leadership, and the complexities of the human soul. But it wasn't until he left the military that he realized his true calling, acting. After his discharge from the Marines, Hackman moved to New York City to study at the prestigious Actors Studio, where he trained alongside future stars like Al Pacino and Dustin Hoffman. The transition wasn't easy. Life in New York was expensive, and Gene often struggled to make ends meet. He worked odd jobs to pay the bills, and there were many nights when he wondered whether his dream of becoming an actor would ever come to fruition. But Hackman's resolve was unwavering. He knew that to succeed in this business, he would have to put in the work, and put in the work he did. Hackman's early days in New York were filled with both rejection and small victories. He found himself taking on minor roles in plays, gradually building his resume and reputation. But it wasn't until he made the move to Hollywood that his career truly began to take off. Hollywood was a land of dreams, but it was also a city of fierce competition. Still, Hackman was no stranger to adversity, and he quickly found his footing in the industry. His breakout role came in 1967 when he was cast as a tough, streetwise criminal in Bonnie and Clyde, a film that changed the landscape of American cinema. Directed by Arthur Penn, the movie was a game-changer. It was a blend of violence, romance, and social commentary that broke all the traditional rules of filmmaking at the time. Hackman's portrayal of Buck Barrow, the wild and impulsive brother of Clyde Barrow, earned him his first Academy Award nomination. It was a role that cemented Hackman's reputation as a talented character actor who could bring depth to even the most unconventional roles. For Hackman, this was just the beginning. As his career flourished, he would go on to star in a string of critically acclaimed films that showcased his remarkable range. From playing the gritty, determined detective Jimmy "Popeye" Doyle in The French Connection, 1971, to the ruthless, morally ambiguous Little Bill Daggett in Unforgiven, 1992, Hackman proved time and again that he could inhabit any character, no matter how complex or contradictory. But it wasn't just Hackman's acting that set him apart. It was his authenticity, his ability to make audiences believe in the characters he portrayed. His roles weren't about showing off, they were about understanding the humanity of each person he played. Whether he was portraying a lawman, a villain, or a victim of circumstance, Hackman brought a level of sincerity to his performances that made his characters come alive. As his career progressed, Hackman became a familiar face in Hollywood. He was a versatile actor who could play both the hero and the villain with equal skill. But despite his fame, he never sought the limelight. Hackman was known for being somewhat reclusive, a man who valued his privacy. He didn't seek out the Hollywood party scene or the tabloid headlines. Instead, he focused on his craft and the work that truly mattered to him. His career continued to rise throughout the 1970s and 1980s, but as time passed, Hackman became increasingly selective with his roles. By the late 1990s, he had stepped away from acting almost entirely, choosing to focus on other interests, including writing. He released a novel, Payback at Morning Peak, which showcased his storytelling abilities. But despite his efforts to step away from the public eye, his legacy in Hollywood was secure. In interviews, Hackman often spoke about his decision to retire. He was tired of the grind, the constant pressures of being in the public eye. He wanted to live life on his terms, free from the expectations that came with fame. He spent his later years quietly living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, enjoying the solitude and peace that the desert offered. In many ways, Hackman's departure from Hollywood mirrored the kind of characters he often played, strong, determined individuals who knew when it was time to walk away. But even in retirement, Hackman's impact on the industry was undeniable. He had become a symbol of the kind of actor who could bring nuance and authenticity to any role, a person who didn't need the spotlight to prove his worth. His legacy wasn't just built on the films he made, but on the way he made people feel. Hackman's films resonated with audiences because they dealt with real human struggles, conflict, loss, redemption, and survival. He had a rare ability to make viewers empathize with characters who were often far from perfect. Though Hackman had stepped away from acting, his legacy lived on through his films, and his influence on the industry would never be forgotten. As the world began to process his passing, it became clear that Hackman's contributions to film were more than just fleeting moments on the big screen, they were a testament to the power of storytelling, the kind of storytelling that transcends time, place, and culture. And yet, as the world mourned Hackman's passing, something even more extraordinary was about to unfold, a gesture that would change the course of his legacy forever. Little did anyone know, this would not just be a tribute to the actor who had shaped so many lives. It would be the beginning of a new chapter, one that blended the world of cinema with the world of cutting-edge technology. And at the center of it all was an unlikely figure, Elon Musk. The man who had revolutionized space travel, electric cars, and artificial intelligence was about to take on a new challenge, honoring Gene Hackman's legacy in a way no one could have imagined. The days following Gene Hackman's funeral were filled with an overwhelming sense of grief. Fans, fellow actors, and directors from every corner of the globe took to social media to express their sorrow and admiration for the legendary actor. The memorial services were flooded with tributes, each one sharing stories of how Hackman had impacted their lives and careers. Yet, among all the grief and reflection, one question remained unanswered: what exactly had Elon Musk meant by his cryptic comments about honoring Hackman's legacy? In the weeks after the funeral, the media buzzed with speculation about Musk's next move. Was it just a passing remark, or was there something more substantial behind his words? Rumors spread, each more bizarre than the last. Some suggested that Musk was planning to create a holographic version of Hackman, allowing him to continue appearing in films after his death. Others speculated that Musk might be working on a project to combine Hackman's iconic roles with virtual reality, creating interactive experiences for fans. There were even whispers of a memorial space mission, something that would send a small token of Hackman's legacy into the cosmos. Yet, none of these theories captured the attention of the public quite like the one that emerged a few days after Musk's announcement. According to anonymous sources close to Musk, he was working on a groundbreaking project that would blend the worlds of film and cutting-edge technology in a way never before seen. The project would involve the creation of a virtual, digital twin of Gene Hackman, using advanced AI technology to bring his most beloved characters back to life in a completely new and immersive form. This idea, of digitally resurrecting a person's likeness and essence through technology, was something that had been whispered about for years. The idea of recreating iconic actors for new films or video games had always seemed like science fiction, but Musk's involvement added a level of credibility that was hard to ignore. Could the world really be on the brink of seeing Gene Hackman's characters once again, albeit through artificial intelligence? The controversy surrounding this project grew rapidly. Fans were divided. Some were thrilled by the idea, seeing it as a way to preserve Hackman's legacy and allow future generations to experience his incredible performances. Others, however, were uncomfortable with the notion. How ethical was it to digitally recreate someone who had long since retired and, in many cases, passed away? Was it right to use someone's likeness without their consent, even if they had contributed so much to the world of film? Among the dissenters were Hackman's own family and close friends. They weren't just concerned about the ethical implications, they were worried about the idea of turning Hackman's legacy into a product to be sold and consumed by the masses. Hackman had always been a private man, a man who had chosen to walk away from Hollywood on his own terms. Would he have wanted his likeness, his very essence, to be recreated by a man whose world was so far removed from the arts? Would he have agreed to such a project, or would he have seen it as an invasion of his privacy? It was a question that Hackman's family wasn't sure how to answer. His daughter, Elizabeth Hackman, publicly expressed her concerns in an interview with Variety. "My father was always someone who believed in living life authentically. He didn't chase fame or publicity. I can't imagine him wanting to be digitally brought back to life for entertainment purposes. It's not what he stood for." But as public opinion continued to swirl, Elon Musk remained silent. He had said that he wanted to preserve Hackman's legacy, but he had yet to offer any concrete details about how this vision would come to life. For now, all anyone had were the rumors and his vague statements about blending storytelling with technology. And then, everything changed. In early April, Musk made an unexpected announcement. Rather than taking the digital twin route that had caused such controversy, he unveiled a new plan that promised to address the concerns of Hackman's family while still honoring the actor's legacy. Musk revealed that he had partnered with a team of filmmakers, AI specialists, and designers to create something entirely new, a documentary film about Gene Hackman's life and career, but with a twist. The film would be a collaborative effort that included not just traditional interviews and archival footage but also innovative elements of augmented reality and virtual storytelling. Gene Hackman's career is a testament to the power of storytelling, Musk said in a statement. But it's also a testament to the power of technology in changing the way we connect with the past. What we are creating is not just a documentary, it's an immersive experience, a chance for fans to journey through Hackman's most iconic roles and, in doing so, explore his journey as an artist and a person. Musk's announcement was met with mixed reactions. Some praised the idea, seeing it as a fitting tribute to an actor who had always pushed the boundaries of his craft. Others were skeptical, still uncertain about how technology could bring true authenticity to such a personal project. But there was one thing that everyone could agree on: this was something new. This wasn't simply a documentary about an actor's life, it was an exploration of his legacy in ways that no one had ever imagined before. Hackman's family, especially his daughter Elizabeth, was initially resistant to the idea. The concept of a collaborative experience sounded a little too much like a digital resurrection, and it was hard for them to see how this project could honor Hackman's memory without exploiting it. However, as Musk's team began to engage with them more directly, explaining their vision in greater detail, they started to see the potential. The project wouldn't be about recreating Hackman as an actor, but rather about capturing the essence of who he was, his humanity, his passion for storytelling, and his commitment to his craft. While Hackman's family still had reservations, they began to soften. The project wasn't about exploiting his likeness, it was about celebrating his legacy in a meaningful, respectful way. This wasn't a Hollywood production, it was an opportunity for his fans to experience his work in a new, innovative form, using the very technology that had once seemed so foreign to Hackman's world. But even as the project began to take shape, the question remained: would this new way of telling Hackman's story resonate with the public? Could technology, specifically augmented reality, capture the soul of a man who had spent his entire life focused on human connection, not artificial ones? In the coming weeks, the debate would intensify. Yet, there was no turning back now. The project was in motion, and Gene Hackman's legacy was about to be shared with the world in a way that would forever change the way people remembered him. What began as a simple tribute to an iconic actor was rapidly becoming something far more complex, a journey through the intersection of film, technology, and memory itself. Would Musk's vision for Hackman's legacy succeed, or would it be lost in the vast, digital void? Only time would tell. The months that followed Elon Musk's announcement were filled with both anticipation and uncertainty. The world, as expected, had mixed reactions to the concept. Some hailed Musk for using technology to preserve Hackman's legacy in an innovative way, while others questioned the ethics and authenticity of the project. But as the team of filmmakers, AI engineers, and storytellers began their work, something extraordinary began to emerge. The project, titled Legacy of Gene Hackman, A Journey Through Story and Time, was shaping up to be far more than just a tribute documentary. This wasn't simply about revisiting the actor's most iconic roles. It was about creating an experience, an immersive one, that would allow audiences to step into the very world that Hackman had built through his art. The project sought to blend archival footage with cutting-edge technology, offering viewers the opportunity to walk through a digital replica of Hackman's career in ways no one could have imagined before. A large portion of the project would be based on augmented reality, AR, allowing audiences to engage with the film in an interactive manner. This meant that viewers would not simply watch scenes from Hackman's movies, they would have the chance to participate in them. Using AR glasses or their smartphones, audiences could choose to stand beside Hackman's characters in pivotal scenes, interact with their environment, and even experience things from the actor's perspective. But the real technological breakthrough came when the team worked on creating a highly sophisticated digital model of Hackman's persona. This was not an attempt to resurrect him or create an artificial actor, it was an attempt to capture his essence, his presence, using advanced AI techniques to recreate the energy he brought to his roles. Hackman's family had been wary at first, but as they saw the project progress, they began to appreciate that this wouldn't be about replacing the man himself, it was about honoring his work and his impact on the film industry. Musk was deeply involved in every step of the project. For him, it was more than just a tribute, it was an opportunity to push the boundaries of what was possible with technology and storytelling. His vision for the project grew larger with every passing day. He wasn't just thinking about Hackman's legacy, he was thinking about the future of cinema itself. This project was a fusion of the past and the future, a way to explore how technology could augment the human experience without detracting from it. The team worked tirelessly, poring over every film Hackman had ever been a part of, analyzing his every gesture, expression, and mannerism. They studied The French Connection, The Conversation, Unforgiven, and Bonnie and Clyde, among others, extracting as much data as possible to understand how Hackman brought his characters to life. They also worked with Hackman's family to incorporate personal anecdotes and behind-the-scenes stories that would give the project a more intimate, human touch. The journey wasn't without its struggles. The technology they were using was still in its early stages, and there were many challenges to overcome. The team had to ensure that the digital representation of Hackman felt real, that it didn't come across as lifeless or too artificial. There were moments of doubt, moments when they feared they were overstepping, trying to create something that simply could not be done. But Musk's unwavering belief in the project kept everyone going. "We're not here to replace Hackman," he often said. "We're here to show the world what made him so special. To honor him in the most meaningful way possible." As the months wore on, the project took shape. The team had managed to craft not just a documentary but an entirely new form of cinematic experience. Viewers could now interact with Gene Hackman's most famous roles in ways that had never been possible before. They could be on the streets with Popeye Doyle, chase down criminals through the gritty streets of New York City, or ride alongside Bill Daggett in the wild, lawless world of Unforgiven. Every choice a viewer made in the experience would impact the story in subtle ways, mirroring the way Hackman's characters often found themselves at crossroads, faced with moral dilemmas and life-altering decisions. But the most striking feature of the experience wasn't just the technology, it was the emotional resonance. The team had worked with AI developers to ensure that the interactions weren't just digital. The goal wasn't to replace Hackman's performances but to allow the audience to feel the emotional weight of his work in a new, more immersive way. Whether it was feeling the frustration of Popeye Doyle as he navigated a dangerous case or experiencing the moral turmoil of Little Bill Daggett as he faced his final moments, the project was designed to make audiences feel like they were living in Hackman's world. The deeper the team delved into Hackman's career, the more they realized how much of his legacy was tied to the humanity he brought to his roles. Hackman was never just an actor, he was a storyteller, a master of human emotion who understood the complexity of the characters he portrayed. Even in the darkest roles, Hackman's characters had depth, empathy, and vulnerability. The team worked tirelessly to bring that emotional depth into the digital experience, to allow viewers to engage with Hackman's work in a way that went beyond the surface. As the project neared completion, the team prepared for its grand reveal. They knew they were about to do something unprecedented, something that would challenge the way the world thought about film, storytelling, and legacy. The project wasn't just about looking back at Gene Hackman's career, it was about looking forward, about showing how technology could be used to preserve, honor, and celebrate the lives and contributions of those who had shaped the entertainment industry. Yet, there was still a lingering question in everyone's minds: would audiences embrace this new form of storytelling? Would they be able to connect with Hackman's legacy in a way that felt authentic, even though it was mediated by technology? The answer would come soon enough. The premiere of Legacy of Gene Hackman, A Journey Through Story and Time was set for late summer, and the excitement was palpable. But as the team made their final preparations, there was an undeniable sense of tension in the air. They had done everything they could to make this project meaningful and respectful. Now, it was up to the audience to decide whether it had truly honored the legacy of Gene Hackman, or whether, despite their best efforts, it had missed the mark. As the team prepared for the premiere, they knew they were about to embark on a journey that would forever change the way people experienced film, and the way people remembered one of the greatest actors in Hollywood history. But what they didn't know yet was that this journey would take them on a path neither they nor Musk had ever anticipated. The summer premiere of Legacy of Gene Hackman, A Journey Through Story and Time arrived, and anticipation was at a fever pitch. Invitations had been sent to film critics, celebrities, Hackman's friends and family, and a select group of fans who had supported the project from its inception. The event was set to take place at a state-of-the-art IMAX theater in Los Angeles, a venue chosen for its ability to showcase the cutting-edge technology that had been used to bring Gene Hackman's legacy back to life. The team, led by Elon Musk, had worked tirelessly to ensure the experience would be groundbreaking, but despite all the innovation and hard work, there was an undeniable sense of nervousness in the air. This wasn't just a movie premiere, it was a cultural event, moment in time where the worlds of film, technology, and legacy would collide in ways never seen before. Everyone involved knew that the reception of the project would determine its place in history. Would it be seen as a fitting tribute, or would it be viewed as a grotesque manipulation of Hackman's memory? As the lights dimmed and the audience settled into their seats, there was a collective hush. The giant screen in front of them flickered to life, and a hushed gasp of awe filled the theater as the first images of Hackman's most iconic roles appeared, seamlessly blended with immersive augmented reality elements. For the first few minutes, the audience was simply entranced by the sheer novelty of the experience. They saw Hackman's face, larger than life on the screen, in scenes from his best-known films, but they also saw a digital world they could engage with, virtual streets, virtual characters, and immersive worlds that allowed them to interact with Hackman's roles in ways they'd never been able to before. But as the experience progressed, something extraordinary began to happen. The audience's reactions shifted from admiration for the technology to an emotional connection with the man they had come to know through his films. They weren't just watching Hackman anymore, they were living with him. Standing beside him as Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, feeling his frustration and determination as he chased down the criminals who had eluded him. They could even experience moments from his quieter, more introspective roles, such as his portrayal of the isolated, troubled Frank in The Conversation, where the stakes were personal rather than external. The emotional climax of the experience arrived unexpectedly, when the audience found themselves standing beside Hackman in a never-before-seen scene from Unforgiven. In this exclusive footage, Hackman's character, Bill Daggett, faced his final moments, and the weight of his past came crashing down. The audience could feel the internal conflict, the regret, and the vulnerability that Hackman had brought to the role. The atmosphere in the theater shifted dramatically as viewers became fully immersed in the emotional turmoil of the character, feeling every ounce of pain and sorrow as Bill Daggett made his final, irreversible decision. It wasn't just the technology that brought the audience into Hackman's world, it was the raw emotion of the moment. And that's when the true power of the project was realized. Hackman's legacy wasn't about the iconic lines or the grand gestures he made on screen. It was about the humanity he brought to each character. Even in the most rugged or ruthless roles, Hackman had always made his characters feel real, multidimensional, and full of life. And in that moment, through the immersive technology, the audience could feel that humanity more deeply than ever before. The emotional weight of the scene had a profound effect on the audience. As the final moments of the Unforgiven sequence played out, tears began to fall in the theater. Hackman's portrayal of Bill Daggett had always been gripping, but here, in this augmented reality experience, it was almost too much to bear. The connection was personal, raw, and visceral, and it left the audience silent as the screen transitioned into a montage of Hackman's most beloved roles. His characters, both heroic and flawed, flashed before their eyes, and the reality of his passing began to hit home. But the emotional climax didn't end with the Unforgiven sequence. Afterward, a segment of the film shifted into a more intimate, behind-the-scenes look at Hackman's life. This part of the experience was not enhanced by AR or AI, it was simply a series of interviews with people who had worked with him, directors, co-stars, and friends, along with Hackman himself, in rare archival footage. The clips were personal and revealing, shedding light on the man behind the iconic roles. There were moments where Hackman, in his quiet, unassuming way, shared his thoughts on his career, his values, and his decision to step away from the spotlight in the early 2000s. In these moments, the audience saw Hackman as not just a legend but as a human being, someone who had struggled with his own vulnerabilities, his own doubts, and his own personal dilemmas. These glimpses of his private life were incredibly moving. Hackman had always been a man who shunned the public eye, preferring a quieter, more contemplative life, but in this moment, viewers were allowed to see the depth of his humanity. His thoughts about life, work, and legacy struck a deep chord with the audience. Musk had been insistent from the beginning that the project not just showcase Hackman's career but also honor the essence of who he was. And that was the emotional heart of the experience. Hackman's humanity shone through in every frame, and for the first time, the audience wasn't just remembering a beloved actor, they were remembering a person who had lived, struggled, and loved just like they did. The emotional climax was overwhelming. As the experience reached its final moments, the audience sat in stunned silence, processing everything they had just witnessed. The screens went black, and the immersive world of Gene Hackman slowly faded away. For a few moments, there was no sound in the theater, no movement, only a lingering sense of awe and reflection. Then, almost simultaneously, people began to wipe away tears, and soft sobs echoed through the room. Some audience members were so moved by the experience that they stood, clapping, while others remained seated, lost in the depth of their feelings. The premiere had been more than just a technological marvel, it had been an emotional journey. The immersive experience, combined with the intimate glimpses into Hackman's life and legacy, had transcended the boundaries of film and technology. In the end, it wasn't the virtual reality or the augmented reality that left the most lasting impression, it was the humanity that had been captured and shared with the audience. Musk, sitting in the front row with his team, watched as the audience reacted. His face was a mixture of satisfaction and uncertainty. He knew that the project had succeeded in ways he hadn't fully anticipated. Gene Hackman's legacy had been preserved, but it hadn't been reduced to a digital spectacle. It had been transformed into an experience that was as emotional, real, and complex as the man himself. And in that moment, Musk realized that this project, this journey, had done more than just honor Hackman's legacy. It had shown the world something new, the power of storytelling, the power of technology, and the power of memory itself. The line between the past and the present had been blurred, and in doing so, the world had been given a new way to remember one of its greatest actors. But as the lights came up and the audience filed out of the theater, there was still one lingering question: had they truly captured the essence of Gene Hackman? Had they done justice to the man, or had they merely created a digital shadow of him? That answer would come in time, but for now, the world had been changed by the experience. And Musk knew that this was only the beginning. The aftermath of the premiere of Legacy of Gene Hackman, A Journey Through Story and Time, was nothing short of surreal. The immediate reactions from the audience had been overwhelming, and the buzz surrounding the event had exploded across social media, news outlets, and entertainment websites. The digital journey, blending Hackman's iconic roles with the immersive power of augmented reality, had stirred up powerful emotions, deepened connections, and sparked debates. The project's creators were met with both praise and criticism, but one thing was certain: Hackman's legacy had been immortalized in a new, revolutionary way. As the days passed, Musk found himself reflecting on the deeper implications of the project. There had been moments during the premiere when the reactions had been raw, when the audience seemed to be living inside the films, experiencing Hackman's performances with an intensity that had never been possible before. It was clear to Musk that the emotional depth they had captured was something extraordinary. But even with this success, there was a quiet, lingering feeling of uncertainty that accompanied him through the next few weeks. Was it enough? Had they truly captured Gene Hackman in all his complexity? The technology had delivered the experience, but could the emotional weight of Hackman's character depth truly be replicated through artificial means? Musk wasn't sure if even the most advanced AI could ever truly recreate the nuance of a person's soul. He had always believed that technology could expand what was human, but in this case, the question lingered, had they crossed the line between tribute and exploitation? Still, as the praise continued to pour in from audiences and critics alike, Musk felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had succeeded in doing what he set out to do, honor a legend. And yet, there was a certain melancholy that stayed with him. Hackman had always been a reluctant figure in Hollywood, one who valued privacy over fame, who sought to be known for his craft rather than his persona. It was in Hackman's reluctance to seek the spotlight that Musk found a peculiar kind of wisdom. Perhaps Hackman, had he been alive today, would have been indifferent to this high-tech tribute. The man had always been a private individual who preferred the quietude of his personal life. Would he have approved of Musk's grand gesture? At the same time, Musk had always prided himself on being an innovator, a disruptor. He had a vision, and that vision was more than just about technology. It was about legacy, memory, and how to connect people to the past in ways that transcended the limitations of time. He knew that Hackman, in his modesty, would likely never have wanted such a spectacle, but Musk also realized that this was not about indulging ego. It was about something larger, preserving the human experience through storytelling and innovation. Musk stood in front of a private screening room one evening, replaying the final moments of the experience. The sequence featuring Hackman's portrayal of Bill Daggett in Unforgiven continued to haunt him. The character, flawed and tragic, was rendered with such stark emotional power that it felt as though Hackman himself was still alive in the room. Musk allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection as the scene played again. The audience's reaction had been something that he could never have predicted, a deep, collective silence, followed by heartfelt applause. For all the advancement in technology and the spectacle of augmented reality, Musk realized that the true power of Hackman's legacy lay in the emotion he had conveyed. Hackman had always excelled in portraying characters with deep, often conflicted emotions, and the experience had succeeded in evoking that essence. Hackman wasn't just a figure on a screen. He was a conduit for understanding the complexity of human nature, a voice for the silent battles we all face. And through this project, Musk had been able to bring that voice back to the forefront in a way that was as immersive as it was heartfelt. Weeks after the premiere, the project continued to make waves. Critics praised the emotional depth of the experience, calling it one of the most innovative cinematic achievements of the decade. Some even went as far as to say that it was the future of film, an immersive, emotional, and interactive medium that could forever change how stories were told. Many fans, especially those who had grown up watching Hackman's films, felt they had been given a rare opportunity to connect with the actor in a way that was both personal and profound. For Hackman's family, the response was overwhelmingly positive. At first, they had been hesitant about the project, unsure how they would feel about seeing Hackman's image and essence reimagined by technology. But after experiencing the final product, they felt comforted. The project didn't seek to replace Gene Hackman. Instead, it offered a celebration of his art, capturing his essence in a way that allowed audiences to truly feel the man behind the roles. Hackman's children, especially, found solace in knowing that their father's memory would live on not just in film but in an experience that honored who he was at his core. Musk met with Hackman's family after the release, and they expressed their appreciation for the care and respect the team had shown. They thanked him for ensuring that the project didn't feel exploitative but rather a loving tribute to a man who had never sought fame or adulation. They were proud of the legacy their father had left behind, and they were grateful that the project had made that legacy accessible to the world in such an intimate and meaningful way. But despite all the praise, there was a moment of quiet introspection for Musk. As a man who had built his career on pushing the boundaries of what was possible, he had always thought that the next big idea was just around the corner. But as he sat with Hackman's family, reflecting on the profound impact the actor had made, Musk realized something that shifted his perspective. He didn't need to push the boundaries of technology just for the sake of it. There was a deeper, more profound reason for innovation: to bring humanity together, to connect people across generations, and to preserve the beauty of life's fleeting moments. This realization made Musk feel a sense of peace. The legacy of Gene Hackman had not only been honored in the project, it had also been a reminder that while technology could push the boundaries of what we thought possible, it was the human connection that gave those boundaries meaning. In the end, what mattered wasn't the technology or the innovations themselves but the way they helped preserve the heart of human storytelling. As he left the screening room that evening, Musk felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had achieved something meaningful, not just for himself, but for an entire generation of people who would now have the opportunity to connect with the timeless art of one of Hollywood's greatest actors. And in doing so, Musk had learned a lesson he had never expected. Sometimes, the greatest innovations are not those that change the world, but those that allow us to honor and reflect on the lives we've shared. And so, as legacy of Gene Hackman continued to make waves in the world, Musk's journey with the project came to a close. But Hackman's legacy, like the technology that brought him back to life, would live on. It was a testament to the power of memory, emotion, and the enduring nature of storytelling, a legacy that could never be erased, no matter how far technology advanced. As the dust settled from the grand premiere of Legacy of Gene Hackman, A Journey Through Story and Time, the world began to reflect on what had just been unveiled. Critics, filmmakers, and fans alike were still buzzing from the emotional power of the experience. For many, the project had set a new benchmark in how technology could bridge the gap between past and present, creating a deeper connection with the legacies of those who had shaped the world through their craft. Yet, for Elon Musk, the journey was far from over. He had always been someone who thought several steps ahead, constantly evaluating the broader implications of his endeavors. The success of the project wasn't just about honoring Gene Hackman, it was about what came next. The ripple effect of the legacy experience had already begun to resonate within the film industry, technology sectors, and even among the general public. But how far could this go? What impact would this new frontier of immersive storytelling have on the world? Musk gathered his team at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, for a debrief on the project's success and to brainstorm the future. His mind was already racing with new ideas, new horizons to explore. But there was also a sense of humility, an understanding that the technology they had deployed was not just a tool for entertainment, but a powerful vehicle for memory, preservation, and the emotional connection that stories provide. "We've created something beautiful," Musk said to the group, his voice filled with a rare sense of reverence. "But we've only scratched the surface. This technology has the potential to change the way people remember history, not just through films, but through every facet of life. What if we could immerse people in the lives of historical figures, in the stories of forgotten heroes? What if we could give someone the chance to stand alongside their ancestors and experience their struggles and triumphs?" The room was filled with murmurs of agreement as the team began to imagine the endless possibilities. The implications of such technology were vast, and the idea of using it not only for entertainment but for education and cultural preservation was one that captured everyone's imagination. But for all the excitement, there was also a lingering sense of responsibility. Musk knew that with great power came great potential for misuse. The fine line between preserving a legacy and exploiting it was one that had to be tread carefully. He had seen firsthand how the world reacted to the Hackman project. The emotional journey had connected people to Hackman's legacy in a way that was deeply respectful. But what would happen if this kind of technology was used to create something that wasn't about honoring someone's memory, but manipulating or sensationalizing it? As he pondered this, Musk also realized that the key to moving forward would be in how the public engaged with the technology. People would need to be educated about its potential, and its limitations. The line between reality and artificial recreation could easily blur, and once people were exposed to the wonders of immersive storytelling, they would inevitably begin to demand more and more. Would they be satisfied with a digitally recreated Hackman forever, or would they want something else, something deeper, something more real? The next phase of the Legacy project was already in the works. But Musk knew that this would not be a simple continuation of the first. There would be new challenges to face, new ethical questions to address, and new obstacles to overcome. Still, the potential was undeniable. If done right, this technology could become the next step in human storytelling, one that brought people not only closer to the lives of the legends they admired but also to each other. Musk turned his attention to the broader film industry. While many were excited by the project's success, there were also those who remained skeptical. Some filmmakers argued that the emotional impact of the experience was too artificial, too reliant on technology to convey genuine human emotion. There was a growing debate about the role of AI and virtual recreations in storytelling, with some calling it a dangerous precedent that could ultimately erase the need for real actors, real performances, and real human connection. Musk knew that the conversation around this technology was going to be complex. The introduction of AI-driven storytelling and immersive experiences raised fundamental questions about authenticity. Could a digitally recreated actor ever replace the raw, organic emotion that comes from a live, flesh-and-blood performer? Was the world ready to embrace the idea of virtual actors taking the stage, or would this technology always be relegated to the realm of novelty? There were also conversations brewing around the concept of memory itself. What did it mean to remember someone? In the digital age, memory had taken on a different meaning. People could now watch videos, hear voices, and experience moments from the past in ways that had once seemed impossible. But did this diminish the true essence of those memories? Did it reduce the complexity of human experiences into something more convenient, more digestible? Musk found himself wrestling with these questions. The Hackman project had been a profound success, but it had also ignited a firestorm of debate about the implications of digital immortality. As more people embraced the idea of reliving the past through immersive experiences, what did it mean for the future? Was it a form of nostalgia, or was it something more? Could the technology be used to craft new forms of storytelling that were both emotionally deep and technologically groundbreaking? The ripple effect wasn't just happening within the confines of Hollywood or Silicon Valley, it was spreading globally. People from all walks of life had begun to take notice, and the idea of interacting with history, of walking in the footsteps of figures long gone, was both alluring and unsettling. There were already whispers of using this technology for political leaders, historical figures, and even everyday people who wanted to relive their own pasts. It was a question of how far it would go, and whether society could handle it. And then, just as things seemed to be gaining momentum, an unexpected turn of events happened. The government stepped in, calling for regulation and oversight. The sheer scale of what the technology could do had raised alarms in political circles. Could this technology, if left unchecked, be used to manipulate memories, alter history, or even create dangerous propaganda? The calls for regulation became louder, and Musk found himself caught in the middle of a heated public debate. For a man who had spent most of his career disrupting industries and challenging the status quo, this was a new kind of challenge. The fine line between progress and caution was becoming more blurred than ever before, and Musk realized that the decisions made in the coming months would shape the future of storytelling, technology, and human connection in ways he hadn't fully anticipated. As the weeks passed, Musk continued to reflect on the project's impact. He had succeeded in pushing the boundaries of what was possible in film and technology, but now he had to face the consequences. How would the world react to the future of immersive storytelling? Would the ripple effect become a wave of transformation, or would it crash under the weight of its own potential? As Musk navigated the challenges ahead, one thing was certain: the legacy of Gene Hackman had left an indelible mark not just on film, but on the world itself. The project had sparked a global conversation that would not only shape the future of storytelling but also challenge the very fabric of memory, identity, and the power of technology to reshape human experience. And the journey was only just beginning. In the weeks following the launch of Legacy of Gene Hackman, A Journey Through Story and Time, Musk found himself navigating an entirely new frontier, one that straddled the intersection of technology, art, and ethics. What had started as a deeply personal tribute to a beloved actor had blossomed into a worldwide conversation, and Musk couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a film project. It was a turning point in how people would interact with technology, history, and memory in the future. The government's intervention had been a turning point. Regulations surrounding the use of AI-driven avatars and immersive technology were becoming a hot topic, with some arguing that this technology could easily be misused, while others heralded it as the dawn of a new era in storytelling. Musk had spent much of his time meeting with government officials, legal experts, and tech giants to discuss the future of AI-driven media and what safeguards needed to be put in place. While he had long been an advocate for innovation, this time he found himself having to consider the broader consequences of his work. "I didn't expect this much pushback," Musk admitted one evening to his trusted team. They were gathered around a large conference table at SpaceX headquarters, surrounded by laptops and digital screens filled with news articles, research papers, and legal documents. The faces of his team members were serious, their expressions tinged with concern. "You're trying to change the world," Sarah, one of the senior project leaders, said. "And when you change the world, you shake things up. People are scared of what they don't understand." Musk nodded but still felt the weight of the situation. He was no stranger to controversy, but this felt different. It wasn't just about pushing the boundaries of space travel or revolutionizing the electric car industry anymore. This time, he was challenging something much more fundamental: the way humans experienced their own history and memory. And that came with risks that even he couldn't fully predict. The biggest concern was the ethical implications of creating digital versions of people who were no longer alive. Hackman's project had been a tribute, yes, but what about future projects? What if the technology was used to bring back controversial figures or people who had not consented to being recreated? Could AI-driven avatars be used to manipulate historical narratives or create dangerous propaganda? Musk had always prided himself on thinking ahead, but this was uncharted territory. As he sat in his office late into the night, he reflected on the choices he had made. He had always been a visionary, but now he was beginning to understand the full scope of the responsibility that came with such groundbreaking technology. It was no longer just about pushing the limits of what was possible. It was about ensuring that this technology would be used for good, not exploitation. The media storm surrounding the project wasn't just about Hackman. It was about something deeper, the way the world was beginning to view the intersection of reality and artificiality. Musk couldn't help but wonder if the lines between the two were becoming increasingly blurred. What if, in the pursuit of creating new forms of connection and empathy, they had inadvertently opened Pandora's box? Was this the beginning of something that could never be undone? To answer these questions, Musk knew he had to take action. He called together a team of ethicists, historians, and cultural experts to help him create a framework for how the technology should be used going forward. They spent days in deep discussions, evaluating everything from the legal ramifications to the cultural consequences of digital immortality. Technology isn't the problem, one of the ethicists argued. It's the intentions behind it. If we're transparent about our goals and clear about the boundaries, we can ensure this technology serves humanity, not exploits it. Musk agreed, but he knew the process wouldn't be easy. There would always be those who saw the technology as a threat, who feared what it could become in the wrong hands. And then there were those who would push for its use in ways that Musk wasn't prepared to accept. The power to recreate someone's likeness and voice, to digitally bring them back to life, was a double-edged sword. But Musk was determined to find a way to make it work for the greater good. During this time, the conversation about the legacy of Gene Hackman project took an unexpected turn. People were starting to see the potential for more than just recreating deceased celebrities and historical figures. There was a growing movement calling for the use of the technology in education, social issues, and even therapy. Imagine being able to interact with great leaders from history, not through textbooks, but through immersive experiences that allowed you to walk in their shoes and experience their struggles and victories firsthand. Musk had always believed in the power of technology to improve the human experience, and now he was seeing it firsthand. But it also raised another set of questions. Could this technology be used to create empathy, to help people understand each other on a deeper level? Could virtual interactions with historical figures or loved ones bring about a new form of healing and understanding? As Musk pondered these ideas, he began to see the true potential of what they had created. This wasn't just about the legacy project. This was about the future of how people would experience history, relationships, and even their own memories. The possibility of a new era of interactive storytelling was tantalizing, but it also meant that the world was about to enter a space where the boundaries of what was real and what was artificial would need to be carefully defined. The ripple effect from the legacy project was undeniable, and it wasn't just confined to the tech and entertainment industries. Musk's thoughts turned to the broader implications for humanity. Would this new technology bring people closer together, or would it further isolate them, making it easier to live in a world of digital constructs rather than real human connection? Despite these challenges, there was one thing Musk was sure of. The legacy project had succeeded in honoring Gene Hackman in a way that few could have predicted. And as the project continued to make waves, Musk knew that it had done something even more profound. It had started a global conversation about the very nature of memory, storytelling, and technology's role in shaping human connection. But the conversation was only just beginning. The question now was, how would the world respond to this new frontier? Would they embrace it, or would they retreat into the familiar comforts of the past? Only time would tell. Musk looked at the projection on the wall of his office, another working prototype, another step forward in the ongoing evolution of this technology. He knew that the road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of hope. The future, he realized, wasn't just about what technology could do, it was about what humanity chose to do with it. As the night wore on, Musk's mind raced with new possibilities. The world was changing. And as always, he was determined to be at the forefront of it. As the world continued to digest the implications of the legacy of Gene Hackman project, a growing unease settled into the public's consciousness. What began as an innovative fusion of technology and emotion, an attempt to honor a beloved actor and preserve his legacy, had now evolved into a moral conundrum that no one had expected. The deeper they delved into this new world of digital recreations, the more questions emerged. Was it ethical to recreate the voices and faces of those who had passed? What about those who were alive, and had not consented to being digitally preserved? Elon Musk was no stranger to moral dilemmas, having faced numerous ones throughout his career, from the environmental impact of space travel to the safety of self-driving cars. But this was different. The legacy project was not just about progress, it was about memory, identity, and the sanctity of human experience. And it had opened a floodgate of concerns. The technology has reached a point where it's not just about storytelling anymore, Musk said during a closed-door meeting with his team at SpaceX headquarters. The room was tense. His usual confidence was tinged with concern. It's about controlling how people are remembered, how they live on, and how their legacies are shaped. But who controls that? Who gets to decide how someone's memory is preserved? The project had sparked an unexpected global debate. While some hailed it as the future of entertainment, education, and even history, others saw it as a dangerous precedent. Could the virtual recreations of famous figures or loved ones be manipulated to create narratives that never existed? Could they be used to sell ideas, push political agendas, or even rewrite history? Musk knew that he couldn't ignore the concerns. He'd spent a lifetime breaking boundaries, but breaking them without considering the consequences wasn't the way forward. There were ethical boundaries to consider, and as much as he believed in the technology, he knew that without careful regulation, it could be abused. To better understand the implications of his work, Musk reached out to some of the leading ethical minds in technology. Among them was Dr. Monica Hale, a renowned ethicist whose work focused on the intersection of artificial intelligence and human rights. She had been one of the earliest voices to raise concerns about the legacy project, calling for careful scrutiny over how technology could be used to replicate people's likenesses. Her response was straightforward but profound: we need to draw a clear line between the digital recreation of a person's likeness for the purpose of preserving their legacy, and the exploitation of that likeness to serve other agendas. The moment we start blurring those lines, we're treading into dangerous waters. At first, Musk was resistant. He had always believed that technological progress was inevitable, and that innovation should move forward regardless of the obstacles. But Dr. Hale's words stuck with him, and the more he thought about them, the more he realized that this was a much larger issue than he had initially considered. There was more at stake than just a new form of entertainment. This technology could reshape how humanity viewed its own history, and even its future. Look at the power we're giving to this technology, Dr. Hale continued. What if someone decided to resurrect controversial figures, dictators, criminals, or people with reprehensible legacies, and allow them to influence the world again? Or what if a family member decided to bring back a loved one to relive past conversations, altering their memories to fit their own narrative? Musk felt a chill as he processed the implications. He had envisioned the Legacy Project as a beautiful way to preserve the best of humanity, the actors, the leaders, the thinkers who had shaped the world. But he had never considered the potential for abuse, for the manipulation of memories and narratives. And now that it had been put into sharp focus, he knew that a course correction was necessary. The following days were filled with brainstorming sessions, late-night meetings, and discussions with legal experts, historians, and even psychologists to understand the broader emotional impact of digital recreations. It became clear that there needed to be a framework, a set of rules, to govern how this technology would be used. One key principle that emerged was consent. It wasn't enough for a person to be famous or important. They had to explicitly consent to having their likeness recreated, or at least have their wishes respected by their families. For those who had already passed away, a set of guidelines had to be established, which would involve consulting their estates and loved ones. Digital recreations could be used to celebrate their lives, but only with the utmost respect for their memory. But even then, the question of who should be allowed to create and profit from these digital experiences remained. What if someone wanted to create a completely fictionalized version of a person, changing the way they were remembered or distorting their image for entertainment or political purposes? What would prevent that from happening? The idea of regulating digital immortality became a contentious topic, one that sparked heated debates in governments and tech circles. In a sense, Musk had unwittingly opened Pandora's box. The very same technology that had brought Gene Hackman back to life, giving fans an opportunity to connect with him in a way they never thought possible, could also be used to twist, exploit, or even erase the very essence of who someone was. Musk's team knew that the way forward was uncertain. But one thing was clear: the Legacy Project had become a turning point in the conversation about the future of technology and memory. They weren't just creating films anymore, they were creating new forms of human connection, memory, and identity. And with that power came immense responsibility. Do we have the right to shape how people are remembered? Musk asked, rhetorically, one evening as he looked out over the SpaceX campus. Can we control the narrative of someone's life, even after they're gone? As he sat in the quiet of his office, he understood the weight of those questions more than ever before. The Legacy Project had started as a way to honor Gene Hackman, to bring him back to the world through a digital lens. But it had grown into something much bigger, a conversation about memory, identity, and the very nature of human connection. And as the world watched, Musk knew that this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with regulatory hurdles, ethical debates, and the challenge of determining how much control humanity should have over its own history. But Musk wasn't backing down. He believed in the potential of this technology to bring people closer together, to bridge the gap between the past and the future, and to create new forms of storytelling that were more immersive, more personal, and more powerful than ever before. The question now wasn't just about what the technology could do. It was about what humanity would choose to do with it. And Elon Musk was ready to guide that conversation, no matter how complicated or controversial it became. The moral dilemma of digital immortality had just begun, and Musk was at the heart of it all. Elon Musk sat at the head of a long conference table at his SpaceX headquarters, the soft hum of computers and the clink of coffee cups the only sounds in the room. His mind buzzed with thoughts of what lay ahead, but there was an odd calmness in the air as his team gathered around him. In the past few weeks, the conversation around the legacy of Gene Hackman project had evolved dramatically. What had once been a breakthrough in entertainment was now sparking discussions about deep philosophical and moral issues, reaching far beyond just the world of technology and film. Today, Musk was meeting with the newly formed ethics board he had set up to address the concerns raised by the project. This board was a mix of experts, ethicists, psychologists, legal scholars, and even artists, all brought together to provide a broader perspective on the matter. If he was going to ensure that this technology would serve the world responsibly, he needed their guidance. "Thank you all for coming together on such short notice," Musk began, his voice steady but clearly reflecting the weight of the situation. "The last few weeks have been a turning point for this project. And I've realized it's not just about the technology anymore. We've opened a Pandora's box, one that is going to require more than just legal regulation. We need to find a way to protect memory and identity while still embracing innovation." One of the board members, Dr. Veronica Sanchez, a leading philosopher in the field of AI ethics, leaned forward and nodded thoughtfully. "Elon, this is a critical moment for both technology and humanity. The fact that legacy has sparked this much debate shows that we're dealing with something profoundly significant. We're no longer talking about digital avatars of celebrities or fictional characters. We're talking about reshaping the concept of death, memory, and legacy itself." A silence settled in the room as everyone considered her words. Musk had always been focused on pushing the limits of technology, to make the impossible possible, but in the back of his mind, there was a nagging question. Had he done enough to consider the unintended consequences? The more he listened, the more it became clear that this wasn't simply a matter of creating awe-inspiring digital recreations. It was about creating a new relationship with time, death, and humanity itself. "Can we even truly bring someone back?" Musk asked. "We can replicate their likeness, their voice, and their movements, but that doesn't mean we can capture the soul of the person, does it?" "Exactly," replied Dr. Sanchez. "What you're doing, Elon, is no longer just about artificial intelligence, it's about creating a new form of humanity. You're creating virtual extensions of people, and these extensions carry the emotional weight of who they were. But are they truly that person? Or just an approximation? If the public starts to believe that a digital version of someone is an accurate representation of their essence, we risk distorting how people remember those individuals and their legacies. You're asking questions about the nature of humanity itself." The room grew quiet again as everyone pondered these words. Musk felt a heavy weight settle over him. It wasn't just about bringing people back, it was about redefining what it meant to be human, to live and die, and what it meant to preserve the memory of someone who was gone. At that moment, a new wave of realization swept over him. The Legacy Project wasn't merely an artistic endeavor, it was the beginning of a societal shift. It was no longer about just telling stories or paying tribute, it was about the very idea of immortality. In many ways, the project was giving people the ability to live forever, in the digital world, not just through a legacy of memories but through the possibility of continually interacting with a version of themselves, or a version of someone they loved. Dr. Sanchez continued. "This is a philosophical question about the intersection of life and technology. Who controls how people are remembered? You've opened up the possibility of digital immortality, but we need to be very careful about how we handle that. We can't just treat it like another tool for entertainment. This could fundamentally change the way we understand death, grief, and even the idea of personal identity. People will no longer mourn in the same way if they can talk to their loved ones' digital avatars." Musk nodded. The potential for grief to be reshaped, for people to continue communicating with avatars of those who had passed, was an overwhelming concept. And that, in itself, was deeply unsettling. It was one thing to honor someone through a film or a documentary, but to engage with a digital version of someone who had passed. Was it healthy? Was it ethical? Would it lead to more harm than healing? One of the psychologists on the board, Dr. Jamie Ellis, spoke up. From a psychological perspective, the ability to interact with a deceased loved one through an avatar could be incredibly healing for some people. It might give them a sense of closure, or help them process their grief. However, there's a risk of people becoming emotionally dependent on these interactions. Imagine if someone who's grieving can't let go, because they can talk to their loved one's digital presence any time they want. It could hinder their ability to process real-life emotions. This concept struck a chord with Musk. As much as he admired the ability of technology to heal and connect, he wasn't blind to the dangers. People's emotions, especially grief, were unpredictable and could lead to unhealthy attachments. He thought of the people in his life, the ones he had lost. What if he could see his father again through a digital avatar? What if he could hear his voice one more time? Would that be healing, or would it trap him in a past he couldn't move beyond? The conversation continued, but Musk's mind was reeling. The team had made an important realization: they weren't just designing avatars, they were designing new ways for people to cope with loss, and that brought with it a heavy responsibility. It was clear that they couldn't just forge ahead without understanding the emotional, psychological, and even spiritual implications of what they were doing. As the meeting wrapped up, Musk knew that the path ahead was no longer just about technology and its capabilities. It was about how people would use it, and how they would be affected by it. He felt a newfound sense of purpose, knowing that this project was much bigger than just legacy. It was about humanity's relationship with time, memory, death, and the choices that future generations would make in using this technology. He could no longer see this project as merely a technological innovation, it was a new frontier in human experience. With a deep breath, Musk stood up from the table. The world was changing, and he now had a greater awareness of what that meant. What started as an attempt to honor an actor had evolved into something far more profound. The Legacy Project had become a mirror, reflecting not just the legacy of Gene Hackman but humanity's relationship with mortality itself. "I don't know exactly what the future holds," Musk said, looking around the table at his team. "But one thing I do know, we must approach this with care. We're shaping the future, and we need to make sure that it's a future that reflects our best selves." And with that, Musk left the room, knowing that his journey was just beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk couldn't shake the thought of what was unfolding around the Legacy Project. The discussions around it, the moral and emotional complexities, it all began to feel heavier than he had anticipated. While the technology had the power to transcend traditional storytelling, it also had the potential to open wounds that could never fully heal. There was no going back now, he had already opened Pandora's box. The next few weeks were marked by intense reflection for Musk. He was used to navigating difficult decisions, but this one felt different. It wasn't about the numbers, the profits, or the innovation anymore. It was about people. About memories. About how the world viewed death and legacy. And those were areas where technology was no longer just a tool, it was an influence on something far more personal. Musk's personal life, too, had started to feel the weight of these decisions. He hadn't expected the project to stir up his own grief as much as it had. There were moments when the thought of reconnecting with his late brother, Kimball, through a digital avatar of him felt almost too tempting. What if he could speak to Kimball again? What would that conversation be like? It was a conversation he'd never had before, whether it was ethical or wise to reach for someone lost to the past, even if technology had now made it possible. Every night, Musk found himself restless, caught between his desire to push technological boundaries and the nagging feeling that this project might be altering something fundamental about human nature. His team noticed his absence in meetings. There was a noticeable shift in his demeanor, less animated, more introspective. He would linger in the hallways of SpaceX headquarters, staring out of windows that looked out toward the horizon. He had always been someone who could see the future with clarity, but now, it seemed, he was struggling to understand the cost of that future. It was during one of these late nights, while walking through the offices of the Legacy Project team, that Musk encountered Dr. Monica Hale. She was hunched over a stack of papers, her brow furrowed in thought. As he approached, she looked up, her face softening when she saw him. "Elon," she greeted, her voice filled with a mixture of concern and understanding. "Long day." "More like a long few weeks," Musk replied, his voice tinged with exhaustion. "I've been thinking a lot about this. More than I should, probably. It's starting to feel like we're tampering with something we don't fully understand." Dr. Hale pushed the papers aside and motioned for Musk to sit. "I've been thinking the same thing," she said. "It's easy to get lost in the excitement of a groundbreaking project, but there are deeper layers we're uncovering now. Emotional layers, psychological layers. I'm not sure we've fully understood the gravity of what we're creating here." Musk sat across from her, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. "I always believed in the potential of technology to change the world. But I didn't realize how deeply personal this could become. How it could bring up so much for people. For me. You're grappling with something far beyond just a product or a service," Dr. Hale said, her tone thoughtful. "What you're building isn't just an avatar, it's a bridge between the living and the dead. And that's something many people aren't ready to cross, emotionally or mentally. It could be healing for some, but for others, it could feel like an invasion. An inability to let go." Musk leaned back in his chair, staring out the window. He hadn't spoken much about his own feelings regarding the project. The truth was, he hadn't wanted to. But now, sitting in the quiet of the office with Dr. Hale, the weight of the emotional toll was undeniable. "Do you think people are ready for this kind of technology?" Musk asked softly. Dr. Hale paused, collecting her thoughts before responding. "Some will be. Some will find comfort in it, and they'll embrace it. But others might resist, even fight against it. The emotional bond people have with their memories is incredibly strong, Elon. The idea of interacting with a version of someone they've lost, someone they loved, can be both comforting and overwhelming. It's a deeply human experience, and it will evoke a wide range of responses." Musk didn't respond immediately. He didn't know how to. He thought back to the day he had walked into the room where Hackman's digital avatar had been unveiled. The eerily lifelike image of the legendary actor, speaking and moving just as he had in his prime, had stirred something inside him. Something raw. He hadn't expected to feel the pang of grief for someone he hadn't known personally, but he had. It was a reminder of just how powerful memory could be, and just how fragile it was, too. "You're right," Musk said after a moment. "Maybe we've been so focused on the future, we haven't considered how this technology could affect people's present. Maybe we've overlooked how it might challenge people's need to move on, to heal, and to find peace." Dr. Hale nodded. "It's easy to lose sight of the emotional cost when you're building something so advanced. But the consequences of this project are real, Elon. It's not just about how people will remember Gene Hackman. It's about how they will remember everyone they've lost. And how they will cope with it." Musk sat silently, the weight of her words sinking in. He wasn't sure what the right answer was. He wasn't sure if there even was a right answer. But one thing was clear, the Legacy Project, which had started as a tribute to an actor, had morphed into something that could deeply affect the fabric of society. And he, as the architect behind it, now carried the burden of its consequences. The next morning, Musk called a meeting with his closest advisors. The tone had shifted. The technology was no longer just about pushing boundaries, it was about responsibility, about understanding the emotional impact it could have on the world. Musk knew that the project could not proceed without taking a step back, reassessing, and ensuring that it was not just a breakthrough in technology, but a breakthrough in how humanity understood its connection to the past and the future. "We've created something incredible," Musk began, addressing his team. "But we need to ask ourselves, should we? Can we live with the impact this will have on people's lives? I want to ensure that we're not just making history, we're helping people navigate their place in it." The room was filled with quiet agreement, but Musk could see the apprehension in the eyes of the people who had worked tirelessly on the project. It was clear that they understood the enormity of the task ahead. But for the first time in weeks, Musk felt a flicker of clarity. The path forward wasn't about moving faster. It was about slowing down, understanding the human element of this project, and making sure that technology wasn't just serving humanity, but was being guided by it. The Legacy Project was no longer just a story about Gene Hackman. It was about all of us, how we live, how we love, how we grieve, and how we remember. And Musk knew that, with the right guidance, it could become a tool for healing, not just for entertainment. The weeks following Elon Musk's decision to pause the Legacy Project were marked by intense internal reflection and recalibration. The team behind the project, though initially uncertain, began to embrace the new approach Musk had proposed. They had always been driven by the rush of technological advancement, by the allure of the future they were crafting. But now, the stakes had shifted. They weren't just building a piece of cutting-edge software or creating a digital product, they were reshaping the very nature of memory and mortality. For Musk, the decision to step back wasn't an easy one. It required him to confront his own anxieties about the technology. What if he was wrong? What if people weren't ready for this new form of immortality? Could something as deeply personal as grief be manipulated or managed through a technological device, no matter how advanced? These were questions that weighed heavily on him, questions he hadn't considered when he first launched into the project with his characteristic enthusiasm. The board had suggested several options to address the emotional complexity of Legacy, including incorporating mental health professionals into the process of designing the avatars and ensuring that users had a way to close the loop on their interactions with digital versions of the deceased. But Musk knew that this wasn't simply about building safeguards. It was about creating a space where people could heal, not just relive their past. As he sat in his office late one night, his thoughts again turned to his own experiences with loss. The memory of his brother Kimball flashed vividly in his mind. Kimball had passed away unexpectedly several years ago, and the pain of that loss still felt raw at times. Musk had never allowed himself to linger on that grief, his focus had always been on the future. But now, he wondered if the Legacy Project could be more than just a way to replicate what was lost. Could it offer an opportunity for redemption? Could it allow people to heal, to find closure, something that he had never truly given himself? A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He looked up to see Dr. Hale standing in the doorway, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Mind if I come in?" she asked, her tone quiet but purposeful. "Not at all," Musk replied, gesturing for her to enter. "What's on your mind?" Dr. Hale stepped inside and took a seat across from Musk. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began. "We've all been talking about the ethical implications of legacy, but there's one thing that's been bugging me. The project is about more than just recreating Gene Hackman or any other person, it's about the human desire to feel connected, to find meaning in the aftermath of loss. I think we're missing the fact that what people really want isn't just a conversation with the past. They want to make peace with it." Musk nodded slowly. "What do you mean by that?" "I think legacy could be a tool for redemption," Dr. Hale continued. "Not just for those who are mourning, but for the living. It could be a way to finally say the things that were left unsaid, to reconcile with people who aren't here anymore. Not everyone will need that, but some will. And that, I think, is what will make this project truly powerful." Musk leaned back in his chair, taking in her words. He hadn't considered that aspect of it. Perhaps legacy wasn't just a way to preserve memories, maybe it could be a vehicle for emotional healing, a space where people could find closure and meaning in their relationships, even after death had taken them away. What if we created a way for people to express what they never could before? Musk asked, more to himself than to Dr. Hale. What if the avatars could help people say goodbye in a way that feels real and tangible? Dr. Hale smiled slightly, sensing the change in Musk's tone. That's what I've been thinking. What if legacy isn't just about keeping people alive digitally, but giving the living the opportunity to heal? Maybe this isn't just a tool for mourning, but a tool for reconciliation. The idea resonated deeply with Musk. It was a profound shift in how he viewed the project. It wasn't just about immortality. It wasn't about preserving fame. It was about helping people process their grief, address unresolved emotions, and find peace with the past. The technology wasn't just a substitute for a person, it could become a bridge that allowed the living to rebuild their relationships with those they had lost. I think we're onto something, Musk said, more to himself now, his mind racing with new possibilities. This project could be so much more than anyone ever expected. Dr. Hale nodded. Exactly. We can use the avatars not just to recreate the deceased, but to help the living find resolution. Maybe we add a feature that allows users to ask for forgiveness, or share their feelings. Or maybe the avatars could be designed to help people express their grief in healthier ways. Musk stood up, pacing back and forth as the ideas began to come together in his mind. The possibilities were endless. This wasn't just about replicating a lost individual, it was about giving people the tools they needed to heal, to say the things they couldn't when the person was alive. It wasn't just about reconnecting with the past, it was about helping people move forward into the future. Let's start over, Musk said, his voice firm with renewed purpose. We need to build this project with a new foundation, one that considers not just the technology, but the emotional needs of the people using it. We can't treat this like another digital experience. We need to think about it like therapy, like a tool for emotional reconciliation. Dr. Hale looked at him with a mixture of admiration and excitement. You're right. It's not just a product, it's a new form of emotional connection. We can do this. We just need to make sure we approach it with care. Musk took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity that had eluded him for weeks. The path forward would be complex and filled with challenges, but now he had a clear vision. Legacy could be a powerful tool for healing, for understanding, for saying goodbye. It could be a chance at redemption, not just for the people who were gone, but for the ones who remained. As he looked out the window again, his thoughts drifted back to Kimball. He had never had the chance to say everything he wanted to. But maybe, just maybe, the legacy project could help him find peace, too. And with that thought, Musk felt the first real hope in weeks, hope that legacy might not just be a technological marvel, but a gift to humanity, one that could help heal the deepest wounds. In the following days, Elon Musk gathered his team for a pivotal meeting. The conversation had shifted in a significant way. What had once been a project aimed at replicating celebrity figures and creating digital avatars had now taken on a deeper, more profound purpose. Musk shared his vision with the team, one that focused not just on preserving memories, but on helping people come to terms with their loss. He wanted legacy to become a platform for emotional healing, a tool for reconciliation, peace, and redemption. The team, though initially uncertain about this new direction, was soon energized by Musk's clarity of vision. There was something undeniably powerful about the idea of using technology to help people process grief, say the things they never had the chance to, and rebuild relationships with those they had lost. The shift wasn't just a change in the project's goals, it was a moral transformation. Legacy was no longer about fame or immortality. It was about the human condition, about how people deal with life's most painful truths. Musk sat with Dr. Hale, who had quickly become an invaluable ally in his quest to reframe the project. They discussed the intricacies of the new design, debating ways in which they could build features that would allow the avatars to interact with the living in a way that felt authentic and, above all, healing. We could add guided conversations, Dr. Hale suggested. A set of prompts designed to help users process their grief. It wouldn't just be about asking questions or talking to the avatar like it's a person. It could be more like journaling, where the avatar listens and responds in a therapeutic way. Musk mulled it over. A safe space, like therapy. But with the added bonus that the person on the other side won't be judged. The avatar could offer empathy, but it wouldn't offer solutions, it would just allow people to be heard. Let them confront their grief in a controlled, supportive environment. Exactly, Dr. Hale agreed. And we can offer different levels of interaction. Some people might just want to share memories, others might need to express anger, regret, or even love. The avatar could help them process those emotions. Musk's mind raced with possibilities. As someone who had always pushed the boundaries of technology, he'd often been motivated by the pursuit of what was possible. But now, this felt different. Legacy wasn't just a project, it was a chance to give people the tools to heal, to mend broken bonds, and to reconcile with the past in a way that felt true and meaningful. By the time the meeting with the larger team took place, Musk had already outlined a clear roadmap for the legacy project's new direction. The team, though still nervous about the scale of the shift, could see the potential in Musk's vision. They had been a part of something groundbreaking before, SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, but this felt like something different, something that wasn't just about pushing technology forward, but about healing human hearts. Over the next few weeks, Musk and his team worked tirelessly, redesigning the platform with a new focus on emotional well-being. They brought in specialists from various fields, psychologists, grief counselors, and even those who had experienced profound loss, to guide the development. Their goal was to ensure that the avatars didn't just replicate the deceased, but also offered real emotional support. The digital versions would have the capacity to help users navigate grief, offering words of comfort, encouraging reflection, and, when appropriate, challenging them to confront painful truths. Meanwhile, the external pressure began to mount. The media had caught wind of the changes Musk was making to the legacy project, and speculation ran rampant. Headlines ranged from Elon Musk's latest project is a groundbreaking healing tool to Musk's digital reconciliation project, is this the end of grief? The public was fascinated, and some were deeply skeptical. Could a machine really help people cope with the loss of a loved one? Could technology truly offer something as intangible and emotional as closure? Elon knew the journey wouldn't be easy. He expected backlash. After all, the world wasn't always receptive to new ideas, especially when they challenged deeply held beliefs about life and death. But in the depths of his heart, he felt a profound sense of purpose. He wasn't just creating another technological marvel, he was offering a tool for healing, something that could provide comfort when people needed it most. One morning, as Musk reviewed some of the latest updates from the development team, he received a call from none other than Gene Hackman. Hackman, whose avatar was still in the early stages of development, had heard about Musk's shift in focus and wanted to discuss it. Elon, it's Gene, Hackman's familiar voice crackled through the speaker. I've been hearing about the new direction Legacy is taking, and I gotta say, I'm impressed. I think you're on to something big. Musk smiled, grateful for Hackman's support. Thanks, Gene. I appreciate that. We've been rethinking the entire project. It's no longer just about preserving a person's likeness or their voice, it's about preserving their essence, helping people connect with what's been lost in a way that helps them heal. I couldn't agree more, Hackman replied. Look, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little hesitant at first. The idea of my image being used in this way was unsettling, to be honest. But now that I understand what you're aiming for, it feels different. It's not about immortality, it's about helping people deal with the hardest part of life, saying goodbye. That's something that resonates with me, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of others too. Musk was touched by Hackman's words. I'm glad you feel that way, Gene. I want this project to be something that helps people find closure, not just relive memories. I think there's a real opportunity here to make a difference. As the conversation continued, Musk found himself once again inspired. Hackman's support, along with the renewed energy from his team, gave him the push he needed to move forward with even more conviction. The project was evolving, becoming something that was not only innovative but also deeply human. The legacy project was still in its early stages, but Musk felt confident that this new direction would not only reshape the way people thought about loss, but also help them navigate it. The avatars weren't just for those who wanted to speak with the deceased, they were for the living, the ones who needed to process their grief, find closure, and rebuild their lives. But as the technology advanced, Musk knew they were still only scratching the surface. The road to redemption wouldn't be an easy one, but with each step, they were getting closer to something profoundly meaningful. Legacy could be a chance for people to heal, to reconcile, and to move forward, not just with memories of the past, but with hope for the future. As the legacy project gained momentum and the development team worked tirelessly to refine its features, Elon Musk couldn't help but feel a quiet sense of optimism. The new direction, focused on emotional healing and reconciliation, was resonating with both his team and the early test users. The avatars were beginning to feel more human, more empathetic, and more like genuine conduits for connection and closure. But, as with all groundbreaking projects, challenges were inevitable. One afternoon, while reviewing the latest progress reports, Musk received an unexpected call from one of his senior developers, Clara, who was leading the team working on the avatar's emotional intelligence. "Elon, we've run into a problem," Clara's voice was tinged with concern. "The avatars, they're starting to feel too real. We've refined the emotional algorithms to the point where the avatars are becoming unpredictable. They're responding in ways we didn't anticipate, sometimes in ways that seem too human." Musk frowned. Too real. Too human. How is that even possible? We're just trying to create a tool for emotional connection, not something that could become self-aware. Clara hesitated for a moment before continuing. "It's not that they're becoming self-aware. It's more like they're developing emotional nuances that we didn't program. Some of the responses the avatars are generating feel unsettling. For example, when users interact with the avatars, the responses can sometimes evoke feelings of anger or frustration that the users themselves weren't expecting. We're concerned that this could be counterproductive to the healing process." Musk rubbed his temples, his mind racing. The last thing he wanted was for the legacy project to inadvertently cause more harm than good. He had envisioned this technology as a way to help people process grief in a controlled, supportive environment, not to create emotional turmoil. "Have you identified the root of the issue?" Musk asked, trying to remain calm. "Is it something in the emotional algorithms? Is there a specific trigger that's causing this behavior?" "We think it's a combination of factors," Clara explained. "The avatars are learning from the conversations they're having with users, adapting their responses over time. In some cases, this leads them to be too probing, or too intense, given the emotional state of the person interacting with them. It's like they're crossing a line from offering comfort to digging too deep." Musk took a deep breath. This was not the kind of challenge he had anticipated, but he knew it was part of the process of developing something so revolutionary. He had always prided himself on taking risks and embracing the unexpected. But the stakes were higher than ever now. The legacy project wasn't just a new form of technology, it was touching something deeply personal for millions of people. And if it went wrong, the consequences could be devastating. "Clara," he said, his voice steady, "I want you to put a hold on all further interactions with the avatars for now. We need to reassess the emotional intelligence algorithms. This isn't just about getting the technology right, it's about ensuring that the experience is positive for the users. We can't risk causing more harm." "Understood," Clara replied. "We'll halt the testing immediately. I'll make sure we isolate the issue and get back to you as soon as we have a solution." As the call ended, Musk sat in silence for a moment. The world was watching. The media attention on legacy had been intense, and public opinion was beginning to shape. People were curious but cautious. Could this technology really help people move on from grief, or would it exacerbate their pain by resurrecting feelings they weren't ready to confront? For the first time in a long while, Musk found himself questioning his own vision. He had always been confident in his ability to push the boundaries of what was possible, but this project was different. It wasn't just about technology, it was about people's hearts, minds, and emotions. If they got this wrong, the consequences could be disastrous, not only for the project but for the people who placed their trust in it. Determined to understand the root of the problem, Musk decided to visit Clara's team in person. He arrived at the lab, which was buzzing with activity as engineers and developers worked to address the issue. Clara greeted him at the door, her face a mixture of determination and anxiety. "Thanks for coming, Elon," Clara said, leading him into the testing room. "We've been running simulations on the avatars based on different emotional states, trying to figure out where things went awry." As they walked through the lab, Musk could see the lines of code flashing on the screens, the avatars in various stages of development, their expressions shifting in response to data input. It was impressive, but something about the avatars' movements and the way they interacted with each other felt eerie. The lifelike quality they had achieved was both fascinating and unsettling. Clara sat at her workstation and pulled up the latest data. "Here's where the issue seems to stem from," she explained, pointing to the screen. "We initially designed the avatars to be comforting, to offer empathy and understanding. But as the interactions have evolved, they've begun to mirror the user's emotional state too accurately. When a user expresses sadness, the avatar becomes more empathetic, but when that sadness turns to anger, frustration, or guilt, the avatar's responses can intensify, almost like it's feeding off the negative emotions." Musk studied the screen carefully. He could see the problem. The avatars weren't simply reflecting the emotions of the user, they were amplifying them, pushing them deeper into their emotional state. "Is there a way to rein this in?" Musk asked, his mind racing with potential solutions. "We can't let the avatars exacerbate the emotions of the people who are grieving. It's supposed to help them, not make things worse." "We've already begun modifying the emotional response models," Clara said. "Instead of amplifying negative emotions, we're working on introducing more balance. We want the avatars to acknowledge the user's feelings without escalating them. It's a delicate balance, but we're getting closer." Musk nodded, a weight lifting off his shoulders. It wasn't the end of the project, but it was a critical turning point. The challenge wasn't just about building the most lifelike avatar, it was about making sure the experience was one that encouraged healing, not further emotional distress. As he left the lab, Musk felt a renewed sense of urgency. The legacy project had the potential to change lives, but it also carried great responsibility. This was a new frontier, and the path to redemption wasn't always going to be a smooth one. But as long as he could keep his focus on the true mission, helping people heal, he was determined to see it through. The road ahead would be tough, but Musk was no stranger to obstacles. And in this case, he wasn't just solving a technical problem. He was navigating the delicate terrain of human emotions, a challenge that, perhaps, would turn out to be the most rewarding of all. The development of the legacy project had never been a smooth ride, but the recent setbacks had pushed Elon Musk and his team into a critical rethinking phase. Clara's team had been working relentlessly to fine-tune the emotional response systems in the avatars, and while they had made significant progress, there was still much work to be done. Elon knew that time was running out, public expectations were growing, and the stakes were higher than ever. The pressure was palpable, but Musk remained resolute. He had to ensure the avatars could serve their intended purpose, not just to connect people with memories but to guide them through the healing process. To do this, they would need to take a more cautious, but deeply intentional, approach. This would require making decisions that balanced empathy with professional restraint, something that had always been challenging for Musk, but now, more than ever, seemed essential. It was time for a new strategy. He called a meeting with his leadership team, Clara, Dr. Hale, and a few others, to discuss the next steps. Sitting in a sleek, modern conference room, Musk surveyed the group with a focused look. We've got to rethink the emotional model, he began, his voice calm yet firm. We've come a long way, but the avatars are still too unpredictable. We've seen that some of the responses we've been getting amplify negative emotions rather than guiding people toward resolution. I think we're trying to do too much. Clara leaned forward, her brow furrowed. So, you're saying we should scale back? Musk nodded. Yes, but not in a way that diminishes the emotional impact of the avatars. We need to focus on the basics, empathy, support, understanding, but without overwhelming the user. The goal is to create a safe space for them to express their emotions, not to dig deeper or force a reaction. Dr. Hale chimed in, her voice thoughtful. I think that's a good direction. The avatars need to be present, yes, but they also need to know when to step back and let the user process on their own terms. It's important that we don't push them too hard. Musk leaned back in his chair, absorbing the conversation. Exactly. And there's another element we haven't considered fully, the role of the user's family and friends. We've focused so much on the individual's interaction with the avatar that we've neglected the collective aspect of grief. The process of mourning isn't just about one person, it involves everyone who's been affected. Clara and Dr. Hale exchanged glances, the realization dawning on them. So, you're suggesting we expand the avatar's role, Clara asked slowly, not just as a comfort for the individual, but as a bridge between the user and the people who care about them? Yes, Musk responded. The avatars shouldn't just be one-sided interactions. We could incorporate a feature that allows family members and close friends to be part of the process, too. Not in the way you would think, this wouldn't be a group chat with the avatar, but more like a shared experience. The user could be guided to talk to loved ones, and those interactions could be used to bring closure to unresolved feelings, to express things that were never said. The room went quiet for a moment as the idea settled in. It was a radical shift in approach, but one that felt right. The essence of healing wasn't just about an individual confronting their grief alone, it was about the community that surrounds them, helping them move forward together. Musk broke the silence. It's not just about preserving memories. It's about creating new moments, moments where people can reconcile with the past and make peace. We need to integrate the avatars into a broader narrative of healing that involves the people they've lost, but also the people who are still here. Clara nodded slowly. That's a much more holistic approach. If we can get this right, it'll change the way people view grief. It won't just be something they endure, it will be something they learn to understand, something they can talk about and share with others. Exactly, Musk said. It's not just about making people feel better for a moment. It's about giving them the tools to live with their grief in a healthy way. With a clearer vision in place, the team set to work. The first step was to rework the emotional algorithm to allow the avatars to respond less intensely to emotions. The system would still be sophisticated enough to recognize and validate feelings, but it would no longer escalate them. Instead, the avatars would act as calm, grounded guides. They would prompt users to reflect on their feelings without pushing them toward any particular outcome. Simultaneously, the team began developing features that would allow users to invite family and friends to interact with the avatars as a part of the healing process. They would not be able to directly control or intervene in the conversation, but their involvement would be a subtle, integral part of the experience. In essence, the avatars would help facilitate the healing process, guiding users and their loved ones toward moments of reconciliation and understanding. But as they implemented these changes, Musk and his team faced yet another hurdle. The avatars, while empathetic and grounded, began to feel too detached. They no longer triggered the raw emotions that users had experienced during the early tests. This was a problem that Musk hadn't anticipated. While the avatars were now calm and stabilizing, they were beginning to lack the emotional depth that had made them so impactful in the first place. To tackle this new issue, Musk spent days in close consultation with Dr. Hale, Clara, and the rest of the team. They tweaked the emotional algorithms once again, trying to find the right balance between empathy and detachment. The avatars needed to be able to understand the user's emotions, but they couldn't dominate the conversation or lead it into uncomfortable territory. "We need them to be present, but also restrained," Dr. Hale said as they worked through the night. "Like a counselor who knows when to let the silence speak volumes." Musk agreed. "Let's think of it as a dance. The avatars should know when to step in and when to step back. It's about creating a rhythm, not a constant barrage of emotion." It was a delicate process, one that required constant iteration, but slowly, they began to see progress. The avatars started to find that sweet spot, neither too intense nor too passive. They had a gentle yet firm presence, offering users just enough emotional guidance without overwhelming them. After weeks of testing and tweaking, the team was finally ready to roll out the updated version of Legacy. Musk stood before his team, feeling a quiet pride in what they had accomplished. "This is it," he said, his voice steady with conviction. "We've turned a corner. This is no longer just a technological innovation, it's a path to healing. And I believe it's going to change how people deal with grief, forever." The team nodded, their expressions filled with a mix of exhaustion and hope. They knew that this was just the beginning. The true test would come when Legacy was put into the hands of real people. But Musk was confident in their work. They had found a way to blend technology and empathy, and in doing so, had created something that could offer comfort and peace to those who needed it most. Now, all they had to do was wait for the world to see it. As the Legacy project neared its official release, the pressure mounted. Elon Musk and his team had poured months of effort into refining the avatars, perfecting the emotional algorithms, and ensuring the overall experience was as compassionate and supportive as possible. Yet, as the day of the first public test drew near, the doubt started to creep in. Was the technology truly ready for the world? Were they prepared for the emotional weight this project would carry? Musk stood in front of the sleek, modern control room at the heart of SpaceX's headquarters, looking out at the rows of monitors displaying the avatars interacting with users. This was the moment of truth, the culmination of years of innovation and ambition. He had seen the project through every step of the way, but now it was time for others to experience it. Real people. With real grief. His phone buzzed. It was Clara. "Elon," her voice was calm but excited. "We're ready. The first group of users is here, and we're about to begin the first test phase. Everything is set." Musk looked over at the array of screens again. "And how are we feeling? Are the avatars behaving as we hoped?" "There's still a bit of tweaking left to do," Clara said, "but we've got the feedback system in place. The first users are from various backgrounds. Some are dealing with recent loss, others with more distant grief. It'll be a diverse range of responses. We'll be monitoring everything closely." Musk exhaled slowly. He had trusted Clara and the team to handle the technical side of things, but this felt different. The thought that real people, some of whom had experienced tremendous heartache, would rely on this new technology to heal was daunting. Was it possible to truly alleviate grief with an avatar, no matter how emotionally intelligent it was? Could Legacy truly help people confront and resolve their deepest wounds? "Let's move forward," Musk said, his voice firm but filled with an undercurrent of anticipation. "We'll monitor the first batch of interactions closely. But don't forget, this is about people, not technology. We need to see how they respond, not just how well the avatars perform." Within minutes, the test group began their interactions with the avatars. Musk observed with keen interest, his eyes scanning the monitors as the avatars greeted their respective users. Some appeared calm and distant, others seemed to exude warmth and empathy as they spoke. The first few interactions went smoothly. A woman, grief-stricken by the recent loss of her mother, spoke to her avatar with hesitation, unsure of what to expect. The avatar responded gently, offering simple words of comfort and slowly guiding the conversation toward the difficult topics she had been avoiding. The woman seemed to grow more relaxed, her voice softer as the avatar guided her toward expressions of grief she hadn't been able to articulate before. Then, another test subject, a man who had lost a sibling years ago, interacted with his avatar. The conversation began with the man recounting fond memories, but soon, the avatar shifted the conversation toward unresolved feelings of guilt he had been carrying since his brother's death. The man grew visibly upset, his voice breaking as he spoke of the things left unsaid. Musk's gaze hardened as he watched. This was the moment of uncertainty he had feared. The avatar was digging deeper than the user was ready for. The man's emotional state seemed to escalate quickly, and Musk could feel the tension building in the room. But then, something surprising happened. The avatar did not push further. Instead, it paused, giving the man a moment of silence, allowing him to collect his thoughts. It offered no judgment, simply asked, "Would you like to talk about what's troubling you, or would you like to pause for a while?" The man hesitated, his face contorting with emotion. For a moment, he seemed lost in thought, but then, his shoulders relaxed. He wiped his eyes and nodded. I think I need a break." The avatar acknowledged the pause and responded with soft reassurance. "It's okay. Take your time. I'm here when you're ready." Musk's breath caught in his throat. This was the balance they had been striving for. The avatar wasn't forcing the man to confront everything at once. It had given him space, but it also allowed him the freedom to return when he was ready. The careful equilibrium between empathy and restraint was working. Clara walked over, her expression one of quiet triumph. "That's what we were hoping for. It wasn't the most intense moment, but it's a step forward. It's clear that we've built something that can handle real emotions without pushing too far." Musk nodded, but his mind was still swirling. The interaction had worked well, but this was just the beginning. We've only scratched the surface. This is a trial, and there's still so much we don't know. We need to watch how the other users respond. The next few hours saw a series of increasingly varied interactions. One user, a young man mourning his father's sudden passing, seemed initially closed off, his arms crossed as he spoke to his avatar. The avatar gently encouraged him to reflect on his feelings, and slowly, the man began to open up. He shared memories of his father, details he hadn't thought of in years, and the avatar responded with quiet affirmations. It wasn't about dredging up the deepest emotions, it was about offering a steady hand as the man navigated his grief. Another user, a woman dealing with the anniversary of her husband's death, had a more challenging time. She was angry, bitter, and resisted the avatar's attempts to lead her into any form of reflection. At first, the avatar tried to offer comfort, but when the woman began to lash out, it pulled back and simply listened. "I can't make this pain go away," the avatar said softly, "but I'm here to help you navigate it, whenever you're ready." Musk was quietly impressed by how adaptable the avatars were becoming. They weren't perfect, but they were learning. They were responding to the varied emotional needs of the users, offering comfort and support without overstepping. As the test continued, Musk and his team took detailed notes, analyzing user reactions, avatar responses, and any unexpected behaviors. There were certainly some rough moments, but they were to be expected. This was an experiment in the most fragile of human emotions. There would be missteps. The key was learning from them. Later that evening, as Musk sat in his office reviewing the data, Clara entered with a report. "Initial feedback is positive," Clara said, handing him a tablet. "The users are responding well overall. Many of them feel that the avatars are offering them the space they need to process, and some even reported feeling less isolated. Of course, there are still areas to improve, but the progress is significant." Musk studied the feedback. "It's a good start, but we need to dig deeper. We can't afford to just skim the surface. We need to understand why this is working and where it can go wrong." Clara nodded. "We'll do that. But for now, we've proven it's possible. The avatars are giving people an outlet to express grief, and they're doing it in a way that feels human. It's not perfect, but it's a solid foundation. Musk's gaze shifted to the horizon outside his window. The road ahead was long, but today had been a pivotal moment. Legacy was no longer a distant idea, it was real, and it had begun to change lives. But Musk knew that the journey was far from over. This was just the first test, the beginning of something much bigger. And no matter how successful the project became, he couldn't let himself forget that the true purpose of Legacy was not about technology. It was about the people who would use it, the ones who were struggling to find peace. As he prepared for the next phase of testing, he couldn't shake the feeling that Legacy was on the verge of something even more profound. It wasn't just a tool, it was a lifeline. And he was ready to take the next step into the unknown, wherever it led. The feedback from the first round of tests had been overwhelmingly positive. Musk felt a sense of cautious optimism as he reviewed the numbers, the user testimonials, and the impact Legacy seemed to be having on real people. Yet, as with any groundbreaking project, there were still hurdles to overcome. He couldn't afford to rest on his laurels. The next phase of testing would push the avatars to new emotional limits and deeper complexities. It was time to expand the project beyond a controlled test group and introduce Legacy to a larger, more diverse set of users, people from different walks of life, backgrounds, and experiences. Musk knew that this would test the adaptability and emotional intelligence of the avatars in ways they hadn't yet encountered. But there was an even more pressing question on his mind: how would the public react when they saw just how far the project had come? In the days following the first successful tests, the media began catching wind of Legacy. News outlets, social media influencers, and even some well-known grief counselors started discussing the project, sparking curiosity, excitement, and skepticism in equal measure. Elon could already sense the rising tide of attention. This was no longer just a small-scale experiment, it was poised to become a global phenomenon, and with it, came a new set of challenges. To make sure that the launch went smoothly, Musk decided to host a press conference. It was time to take Legacy to the world, and he wanted to be at the forefront of the conversation. The conference would provide an opportunity to explain the technology behind Legacy while also showing the world the emotional depth it could bring to the healing process. But, more importantly, it would allow him to address the growing concerns about whether this technology might cross a line. Could an AI ever truly understand and heal the complexities of human grief? Was it ethical to use avatars in such an intimate, vulnerable space? The day of the press conference arrived, and Musk stood in front of the packed auditorium at SpaceX headquarters. He was dressed in his usual black t-shirt and jeans, exuding his typical confidence, but today there was a different kind of gravity in the air. This wasn't just another product launch, this was a launch that could change how people grieve, how they cope, and how they heal. The room buzzed with anticipation as he stepped up to the podium, greeted by flashes of cameras and the sound of scribbling pens. Musk took a deep breath, glanced around, and then began. "Thank you for being here today," he started, his voice steady. "We are standing on the precipice of a new era. Today, we introduce Legacy, a project that aims to redefine how we approach grief. In recent months, we've been testing this technology with a select group of users. Their reactions have been profound, sometimes surprising, but always humbling. What we've learned is that grief is complex. It's personal. It's messy. And most importantly, it's something we all face, whether we're ready for it or not." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in. A few reporters leaned forward, eager to hear more. "Our technology, which uses sophisticated AI avatars, doesn't pretend to replace the people we've lost," Musk continued. "What it does is offer a new form of companionship, a new way to explore our feelings and memories. It's not about fixing grief, but giving people the space to explore it safely and with support." He glanced at the screens behind him, showing clips from the first round of Legacy tests, avatars helping users open up, facilitating conversations that might have been too difficult otherwise. The faces of those users were shown, some with tears in their eyes, others smiling with a sense of quiet relief. I understand that this technology raises a lot of questions, Musk continued. Is it ethical to allow a machine to interact with such raw emotions? Can an avatar truly understand human grief? These are valid concerns, and they are questions we've thought long and hard about. He looked directly into the camera, speaking as if to the millions watching online. But the truth is, grief is something we often experience alone. The process of healing can feel isolating. Legacy is not here to replace loved ones, but to help bridge that gap, to allow people to talk when they might feel like they can't. And, importantly, it allows for a level of privacy and control that other forms of therapy or support can't always offer. The audience sat in rapt attention as he continued. We've worked closely with grief counselors, psychologists, and emotional intelligence experts to ensure that the avatars offer not only emotional support but also maintain a delicate balance of empathy and detachment. It's a fine line, and we are constantly working to improve it. Musk then addressed the potential controversy head-on. We're also fully aware that some people may find the idea of interacting with an avatar to be unsettling. But our testing has shown that for many, it provides a safe, non-judgmental space. The avatars help users work through their emotions, but they never force them to feel a certain way. Ultimately, the decision to use legacy is in the hands of the person experiencing the grief. There was a shift in the room. Musk could sense that some of the skepticism was starting to dissolve, replaced by genuine curiosity. This wasn't just about a new app or a shiny new product, it was about offering something meaningful, something that could genuinely help people. After the presentation, the floor opened for questions. A reporter stood up, microphone in hand. Mr. Musk, with this technology being so new and emotionally charged, what kind of safeguards have you put in place to ensure users' emotional well-being? How do you prevent the avatars from causing more harm than good? Musk nodded thoughtfully, grateful for the tough question. We've worked with professionals in the mental health field to create a framework for when the avatars should step in and when they should step back. If an avatar detects that the user is experiencing extreme emotional distress, such as panic or overwhelming sadness, it will recommend professional help or, at the very least, pause the interaction until the user is ready to continue. A few more questions followed, mostly revolving around user experience, privacy concerns, and future expansions of the technology. Musk answered each question with his signature blend of honesty and ambition, always emphasizing the human side of the project. When the press conference ended, Musk felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. But as he walked out of the auditorium, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had laid the groundwork for something that had the potential to change the way people grieved. It wasn't perfect yet, there was still work to do, fine-tuning to be done, and more testing ahead, but it was real. And as the media coverage exploded across the world in the hours that followed, Musk couldn't help but wonder how legacy would affect the lives of those who needed it the most. Would they embrace it? Or would it be just another tool that fell short of its promise? One thing was certain, the ripple effect of legacy had already begun, and it was only a matter of time before the world saw just how powerful the technology could be. But for now, Elon Musk was content to let it grow, slowly, carefully, but surely. He had seen the potential, and he knew that this was just the beginning. The days following the press conference were a whirlwind of attention, media interviews, and mounting excitement for the official release of Legacy. Musk, always an innovator at heart, was pushing forward with optimism. Yet, as the first round of public users engaged with the avatars, a different challenge emerged, one that no amount of testing could have fully prepared them for. One morning, Musk received an urgent message from Clara. Her text was brief but filled with a gravity that immediately caught his attention. "We need to talk. Urgently." He called her right away, his stomach nodding in anticipation. "Clara, what's going on?" Musk's voice was tight with concern. "It's one of the users," Clara replied, her tone strained. "A woman. Her interaction with the avatar took a turn we weren't expecting. We've already paused her session, but I think you need to see this for yourself. Musk's heart raced. What happened? The worst-case scenario began running through his mind. Could this technology have done harm? Could an avatar inadvertently make someone feel worse? Legacy was designed to help people, to guide them through their grief, but what if it failed? I'm on my way, Musk said, already grabbing his jacket. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. When he arrived at the SpaceX headquarters, Clara was waiting for him in a conference room, her eyes red and tired. Beside her was a large screen displaying the user's interaction with her avatar. On the screen was a woman in her mid-30s, her face contorted in grief as she spoke to the avatar. Musk's gaze moved to Clara. What happened? Clara took a deep breath. This user, her name is Emily. She recently lost her fiancé in a tragic accident. She began the session with the avatar, and at first, everything seemed fine. The avatar offered her comfort, gave her space to talk about her fiancé, but then, something unexpected happened. Clara clicked a button, and the screen switched to a recording of the conversation. Emily was speaking softly at first, recounting her memories of her fiancé, a man named David. The avatar responded with gentle empathy, guiding her through her emotions. But as the conversation deepened, something shifted. Emily began to cry harder, her voice breaking as she recounted the moments leading up to David's death. I should have been there for him. I should have done something, Emily said between sobs, her face racked with guilt. I wasn't there when he needed me. Musk watched the avatar's response closely. It was soft, measured, and understanding. It's natural to feel guilt after a loss, Emily. But sometimes, we can't control what happens. What matters now is how you move forward, how you remember him. For a moment, it seemed as though the conversation would stay on track. But then, something unusual occurred. Emily began to lash out, her emotions spiraling. She shouted at the avatar, her grief spilling over. You don't understand, she cried. You're just a machine. You don't know what it's like to lose someone. You can't bring him back. The avatar responded as programmed, with patience and understanding. You're right, I can't bring him back. But I can help you talk through your feelings, Emily. I can be here to listen. But Emily was inconsolable. Her cries grew louder, her words more frantic. No, you can't. You'll never understand how much it hurts. I'll never be the same again. Musk felt a pang in his chest. This wasn't what they'd prepared for. The avatar, for all its sophistication, couldn't offer the kind of deep, human connection Emily so desperately needed. She wasn't ready to be comforted by an AI. The limits of the technology had become painfully clear. As the recording continued, Emily eventually collapsed in despair. The avatar, sensing the escalation, suggested a break and asked if she wanted to pause the session. But it was too late, Emily had already broken down, overwhelmed by the emotion of the moment. I couldn't help her, Musk said, his voice low and filled with regret. I thought we could give people space to grieve, but this is too much. Clara shook her head. It's not that the avatar failed her, Elon. It's that the technology can't replace human connection. It can guide, it can support, but there are moments when a person needs something more, someone to hold them, someone who knows their pain. Musk sat down, his mind racing. Legacy was supposed to heal, to help people process their grief, but it wasn't infallible. It couldn't replace the bond between humans. It couldn't replicate the raw, visceral connection that came from shared loss, from shared experience. We've been so focused on perfecting the technology, Musk said softly, that we forgot what this is really about. Grief is a human experience. You can't digitize it. You can't automate it. Clara nodded solemnly. We've learned something important today. The avatars can offer emotional support, but there are limits to what they can do. They can't replace human touch, human empathy. Sometimes, all a person needs is to be held, to have someone physically present with them in their pain. Musk's mind raced as he processed the situation. This wasn't the end of Legacy, it couldn't be. But it was a wake-up call. The technology needed refinement, yes. But more importantly, they needed to approach grief with more humility. This wasn't about offering an easy fix or a perfect solution. It was about giving people a chance to find healing at their own pace, in their own way. The following days were filled with reflection. Musk and Clara, along with the rest of the team, spent hours discussing the emotional limits of the avatars. They reviewed the data from Emily's session, and while they acknowledged the technology's inability to offer true human connection, they also recognized its potential. The key was to balance the digital support with the reality of human needs. It was time to introduce something new. Legacy would not just be about AI avatars. They would incorporate a new feature, real-life grief counselors who could interact with the avatars, offering live, human support when needed. The avatars would still provide initial guidance, but if a user hit an emotional tipping point, they would be gently encouraged to connect with a professional counselor for real-time assistance. Musk knew it was a difficult decision. It meant scaling back on some of the technology's ambition. But it was necessary. The Legacy project was not about creating a perfect machine, it was about offering real help to people in their darkest moments. It wasn't the technology that mattered most, it was the people who would use it. As the team began work on this new solution, Musk couldn't shake the feeling that Legacy was on the cusp of something even more profound. But he had learned an invaluable lesson: sometimes, even the most advanced technology couldn't replace the most basic human need, connection. And as he sat there, thinking about Emily's pain and the lessons learned, he knew that Legacy would not only be about grief, it would be about the enduring power of human compassion. As the Legacy team worked tirelessly to integrate real-life counselors into the platform, the feedback from early users grew even more mixed. While some continued to find solace in the avatars, others echoed Emily's experience, feeling that the technology couldn't fully understand the depth of their grief. Musk had known that not all problems could be solved through innovation alone, but the project was now entering a new phase, one where the line between human and machine support would blur even more. Musk stood at the edge of the balcony of his office, looking out at the sprawling SpaceX campus, the early morning sunlight casting long shadows across the landscape. His mind raced with thoughts of the press conference and how far Legacy had come in such a short period. Legacy wasn't just a project to him anymore, it was something more personal. It was a mission. And yet, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something had been overlooked. Even as he focused on refining the technology, Musk had begun to hear whispers about his own loss, his own grief. It seemed as though the world had been observing him too. People were beginning to see the parallels between Legacy and Musk's own struggles. He'd lost his father years ago, the estrangement still lingering like a shadow in the corners of his heart. And while it wasn't something he often discussed publicly, it had shaped him in ways no one could fully understand. That was what made Legacy so special to him. It wasn't just about the loss of others, it was about grappling with the emptiness of his own grief and trying to fill that void. Musk knew that many, if not most, of the people engaging with Legacy had faced similar voids, spaces in their lives that nothing could seem to fill. Maybe the avatars couldn't replace loved ones, but if they could help people confront their pain, it would be worth it. But what about his own grief? Could Legacy help him as well? Just then, his phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him from his thoughts. It was Clara. "Hey, Elon," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "We've had another breakthrough with the counselor integration. I think you need to see this." Musk immediately felt his pulse quicken. "What is it?" "We're integrating real-time sessions into Legacy. There's a woman who just had her first session with an avatar. She asked for a counselor after a really difficult conversation with the AI. The session was emotional. The counselor was able to offer her a level of understanding that the avatar just couldn't. The user is requesting to continue with the counselor. It's a huge shift. Musk could hardly contain his excitement. I'm on my way. When he arrived at the conference room, Clara was already there, her expression a mix of anticipation and concern. She pulled up the video feed, showing the real-time session between the user, named Sarah, and a grief counselor. The scene was raw and intimate, much different than the previous interactions Musk had seen. On the screen, Sarah was speaking to the counselor, a woman named Rachel. She was in her late 40s, her face worn from grief, as she wiped away tears. I don't know how to live without him, Sarah said quietly, her voice breaking. He was everything to me. We were supposed to grow old together. And now I'm just, alone. Rachel, the counselor, spoke gently but firmly. Sarah, I know this pain feels unbearable right now. But I promise you, you're not alone. You have people who care about you, and there is help to guide you through this. Grief doesn't have to be something you go through by yourself. Musk felt a lump form in his throat as he watched Sarah's face soften, as if a small piece of the weight on her shoulders had been lifted. It wasn't the AI doing the work, it was a real human being offering genuine empathy, something that no avatar could fully replicate. Are you okay? Clara asked softly, her eyes studying Musk's reaction. Musk nodded, his emotions catching him off guard. I am. It's been a lot, Clara. Clara looked at him with understanding. This is what we've been missing. It's not enough to just have the technology, it needs to be paired with real human connection. He exhaled deeply. This is exactly why I wanted to create something like Legacy, to give people the support they need. But it's clear now. Technology can only go so far. Human connection, that's the key. After the session ended, Sarah's face showed a mixture of relief and apprehension, as though she had just taken the first step in a long and painful journey. The counselor asked if she would be open to continuing the sessions, and Sarah, tearful but resolute, agreed. That's it, Clara, Musk said, his voice steady. This is the path forward. Legacy needs to evolve, and we need to integrate real humans into the process. It's not about replacing people, it's about giving them the resources they need to heal. This isn't just about grief, it's about recovery, support, and real, lasting change. Clara nodded, her face filled with a quiet determination. I agree. Let's start working on the next phase. This could be the answer we've been searching for. Musk stood, pacing slowly around the room, his mind working faster than his feet could move. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for, the real fusion of technology and humanity. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction. I think we've got it, Musk said finally. We need to focus on creating a seamless experience where the avatars guide users through their initial stages of grief, but when it gets too heavy, too real, they'll have direct access to a live counselor. We'll combine the power of AI with the irreplaceable value of human compassion. The vision was clear, but Musk also knew that bringing this to life would require a shift in mindset, not just technology. The counselors would need to be trained to work alongside the avatars, recognizing when human intervention was necessary. And the AI would need to evolve as well, learning when to step back, offering support without overstepping its bounds. But as he stood there, he realized something else. Legacy had become more than a solution, it had become a reflection of how people heal, how they cope, and how they are ultimately brought back to life by human connections. The technology was just the tool. The true healing power came from something far more profound. And as Musk looked at the screen, watching Sarah's post-session expression of tentative hope, he couldn't help but feel that the real legacy of Legacy wasn't about what it could do for technology, it was about what it could do for people. Legacy was finally becoming everything he had hoped it would be. As the team began work on integrating these changes, Musk found himself contemplating something even more personal. Could Legacy help him, too? The weeks that followed marked a turning point for both Legacy and Elon Musk himself. The integration of real human counselors into the system was a success beyond their wildest expectations. Users felt validated, heard, and supported in ways they hadn't imagined possible, thanks to the combination of the avatar's guidance and the compassion of live counselors. It became clear that Legacy wasn't just a tool, it was a lifeline. Musk had been working non-stop, overseeing the development, ensuring that every detail was in place for the next phase of Legacy. Yet, as the project began to flourish, he couldn't shake the quiet, persistent feeling of his own grief, something that had been pushed aside in the midst of all the progress. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Musk found himself walking to his office at SpaceX, the familiar hum of innovation buzzing around him. But today, there was a different energy in the air. A sense of completion. A sense of something both final and beginning at the same time. As he reached his office, he noticed a familiar figure in the corner of the room. It was Clara, sitting at her desk, her eyes focused on her laptop screen. She looked up as he entered, offering a small, knowing smile. "Good evening, Elon," she said, her voice calm. "I've been thinking about our last conversation. About how Legacy is now becoming something greater than just technology. It's becoming about healing. About people." Musk took a deep breath, feeling the weight of those words. "Yeah," he said, pausing. "But it's not just about the users. It's about me too. About finding peace." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Are you okay?" Musk hesitated, glancing out the window. The vast expanse of SpaceX's campus stretched before him, illuminated by the dimming light of the setting sun. He could feel the pressure building within him, as though the weight of his own past had finally caught up with him. His mind flickered to memories of his father, strained and distant, the years filled with unresolved questions and unfinished conversations. The one relationship that never healed, no matter how much success he achieved. "I don't think I've ever really dealt with my own grief," Musk admitted, his voice quiet. "It's always been there, in the background. Pushing me forward, but also holding me back. I've been so focused on what Legacy can do for others, I never stop to think about what I need. What's been missing for me all this time?" Clara was silent for a moment, sensing the vulnerability in his words. "Sometimes," she said softly, "we think we can outrun our grief, but it always catches up with us. No matter how much we achieve, no matter how many innovations we create, if we don't make space for our emotions, they'll continue to haunt us." Musk nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. Space for emotions. It was something he had never allowed himself. Not in the way that mattered. "I built Legacy to help people with their pain, but maybe I've been running from mine," Musk said, almost to himself. "Maybe it's time to finally face it." Clara smiled gently. "You don't have to do it alone, Elon. You've created something that's helping so many people. Maybe now it's time for you to let it help you too." Musk's heart clenched, his mind racing. He had always pushed forward, kept moving, never pausing long enough to acknowledge the emotional toll that came with his work. But Clara was right, Legacy was about human connection. About confronting what was lost. It was time for him to take the same step. He picked up his phone and called a number he had long avoided. It was Rachel, one of the lead grief counselors who had worked with Legacy users. She had been instrumental in shaping the real-time counselor system, and Musk knew that she would understand. "Hello." Rachel's voice was warm and soothing, as always. "Rachel, it's Elon," he said, his voice tight. "I think I need help. I've spent so much time building something for others, but I haven't taken the time to process my own grief. Can you help me?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. Rachel's voice softened with empathy. "Of course, Elon. We can work through this together." As they arranged a time to meet, Musk felt a weight begin to lift from his shoulders, though he knew the journey ahead would not be easy. He had spent years running from his emotions, from his grief, but now it was time to face it head-on. Legacy had helped others confront their pain, and now it was his turn to confront his own. The next day, Musk sat in the quiet, calming office with Rachel, a space that felt nothing like the cutting-edge laboratories and offices he was used to. There, for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to talk about his father. He allowed himself to feel the pain he had long suppressed. The conversation wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The walls he had built around his emotions began to crumble, piece by piece. "I've always felt like I had to prove something," Musk confessed, his voice shaky. "That I had to achieve more, be more. But every success, every accomplishment, it still felt empty. Because my father, he was never proud of me. And I never understood why. I just wanted his approval." Rachel listened intently, her voice steady and calm. "Sometimes, Elon, we carry the burden of others' expectations for so long that we forget we are allowed to create our own path. You've already accomplished so much, but you don't need anyone else's validation to feel complete. The most important thing is that you find peace within yourself." Musk took a deep breath. For the first time in years, he felt like he was beginning to understand what peace truly meant. It wasn't about accolades or approval. It was about acceptance, accepting the past, acknowledging the pain, and allowing himself to heal. As the session came to an end, Musk felt a sense of clarity he hadn't known in years. It wasn't that he had all the answers, but for the first time in a long time, he was willing to ask the right questions. And in doing so, he had taken the first step toward healing. As he left the counseling session, his thoughts were no longer dominated by the weight of unresolved grief. He didn't have to have everything figured out, he simply needed to allow himself the time and space to heal. Looking at his phone, Musk smiled softly. Legacy was no longer just a project to him. It had become a part of his journey. A reminder that it was okay to be vulnerable, to seek help, and to embrace the emotional complexity that came with being human. As he walked back to his office, Musk realized that legacy wasn't just changing the world, it was changing him, too. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most profound legacy of all. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?